Good, my friend.
Good morning. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting for February 14, 2019 to order. If you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to remind everybody, if you have a cell phone, if you would, please silence it. We'll go ahead and get underway with the business of the day. So, first thing is announcements. Ms. Tusing, are there any revisions to today's agenda?
Good morning, Margaret Tusing with Building and Development Services, and the changes to today's agenda are there are minutes for the January 17th, 2019 meeting for approval. Item number 4, which is PDR 1813ZG Prospect Road Subdivision. There are some additions of floodplain maps that were provided by the applicant, an updated school report, public comments, and revised stipulation and recommended motion are attached to are attached to the update memo. And also item number 5, which is PDMU 1818P Taco Bell Bradenton. There are public comments attached to the memo. Those are the changes.
Thank you very much. Was that your soundtrack? It's not everybody has their own personal soundtrack.
Yes.
That was your walk-on music?
Very good. Ms. Shank, anything from the County Attorney's Office?
No changes.
Thank you very much. All right. The first item we have are the minutes for the January 17, 2019 hearing. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The chair will consider a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the January 17th, 2019 minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. DeLesline. Is there any discussion, deliberation, comments regarding those? Seeing none, the chair will call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0 with Mr. Rutledge being absent. Very good. All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, citizen comment. So this is the opportunity excuse me, this is the opportunity for the audience to speak on any matter that is not on today's agenda. When you'll have an opportunity to actually speak on the applications that are on today's agenda at a later time, specific to those applications. But this is just general comments, again, on items not on today's agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on something that is not on today's agenda? Okay, seeing nobody come forward, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we're going to move into the actual presentations. So the first application we have is application number 2. But before we introduce that item into the record, we're going to have everybody stand. And again, if you intend to speak, not everybody. Only if you intend to speak. Please rise to be sworn in. If you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it later.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you are about to present to the Planning Commission will be truthful and accurate? I do. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, item number 2. Ms. Tusing, could you please read item number 2 into the record?
Yes, Mr. Connolly, I will.
Thank
Item
you.
number 2 is the Z1705, the Davidson rezone. It is a quasi-judicial hearing, and Jamie Schindewolf is the planner. This is a rezoning of approximately 0.759 acres, which is located at 1215 69th Avenue West in Bradenton. It is being rezoned from general commercial to the RMF 9 residential multifamily 9 units per acre zoning district. Both the applicant's representative, the property owners, and Ms. Schindewolf are here for presentation.
Very good, thank you. And for the record, this is a quasi-judicial item on the agenda today, and I'd like to ask the Planning Commission if there have been any ex parte communications. This would include site visits that were intended to collect information. Anything? No disclosures. Okay, thank you very much. For the record, there are no disclosures, no ex parte disclosures. Thank you very much. So the first thing we have is the introduction by staff. Ms. Okay. So the reading into the record is going to serve as the introduction. Thank you very much. Who's representing the application? Good morning, Mr. Friedman. How are you doing? Very good.
Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Joel Friedman. I'm a planning consultant, agreed to help out the Davidsons through this. The staff report is very complete, and you can see on the summary, we're here today basically to rezone the, I'm sorry, I have been sworn.
Thank you.
To rezone the property to clear up a non-conforming issue. Over the years, the Davidsons have owned this property, and there was commercial use on the ground floor. Originally, it wasn't really viable. The Davidsons, who are over there in the audience there, moved in and began renovating the structure into 4 residential units. Well, they didn't realize that that wasn't allowed, and it came to the light of the county. They contacted me, and I agreed to help them out through this process. Essentially, what we're asking for, the property is designated ROR on the future land use plan map, so the rezoning to RMF9 is consistent with that. And what they want to do is to bring back the structure to 3 residential units. They'll still live there. 2 small, affordable units that helps augment their income. They'll bring the building up to code, and really there's no exterior changes to the site or anything not being proposed. They just want to be able to maintain it as with these 2 extra residential units. There was no way we could get the 4 residential units to stay existing, so they've taken the 1 unit out already and moved it into their residence. So again, based on the staff report, it's very complete. We believe we're consistent with the plan. This will help out the Davidsons tremendously, clear up this nonconformity, and I'll answer any questions if you have.
Thank you. And for clarification, the original idea was to construct 4 units because the zoning would not allow it. They've dialed it back to 3 units. Is that correct?
Well, the structure is there, and they unwittingly created 4 units inside the structure. And when it came to the light, there was 4. The 1 unit tenant left. The county became aware of the 4 units and filed a code enforcement action.
Very good. Thank you.
So we'll be back to 3 units.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have staff's presentation? Good morning.
Good morning. Jamie Schindewolf, Manatee County Planning. I have been sworn. So the representative explained the situation really well. I just want to point out a bit more context. So if we look at the site characteristics, we look at the future land use is ROR. The maximum allowable density in ROR is 9 dwelling units to the acre, which is what they would be. They will not get 9 dwelling units. They don't have an acre of property, but that's the density they'll be hitting with this rezoning. They would not be able to have 4 units in their future land use category. If we look at the zoning, you can see that there is residential very nearby. There's actually like a condominium complex just behind them and to the north. And interestingly, with our urban corridor standards, if they were adjacent to 41, we wouldn't be here. This would be allowable already as like a multifamily. But as it stands in their current zoning, 2 units would be allowable. The rezone will give them the opportunity to have 3 units on that property. As stated, they are not proposing any exterior changes. It's all internal, walls, stoves, things like that. So staff sees that this is a positive move forward to correct a non-conforming use. Staff doesn't see any notable negative aspects, and staff recommends approval.
Very good. And again, just for clarification and restate fact, the building is the same. It's just the internal use that is being changed because it went from a commercial use to a residential use. We're here today talking about this.
Correct. And so when you think about, for example, when you get into multifamily, oftentimes parking is something to be concerned with, but they have the space for parking additional cars on their property.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing none, we'll go to the next part of the hearing, and that is public comment. So I have one speaker card. Not sure, I think it's E.G. Mummery. Is there anybody? Yes, sir. Is this the item you wish to speak on? Okay, thank you. So Mr. Mummery, if that's the proper pronunciation, is declining to make comment. So is there anybody else who wishes to come forward and speak on this application? Anyone at all? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we'll go on to the next part of the application, which is applicant rebuttal. Is there any additional information? Okay, the applicant is declining to make a rebuttal. Staff, any additional information? Staff declines. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll go to deliberation. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeLesline.
based upon staff report, evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, finding the request to be consistent with Manatee County Comprehensive Plan and Manatee County Land Development Code, I move to recommend adoption of Manatee County Zoning Ordinance Z-1705 as recommended by staff.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ron, second. Any discussion? All right, the chair's going to call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go on to the next item, item number 3. Ms. Tuzing, can you please read item number 3 into the record? Can you please introduce item number 3?
Oh, that's good. Yes, item number 3 is PDMU 1823P, Morgan's Glen, Moccasin Wallow Associates, LLC. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and Dorothy Rainey is the planner. A preliminary site plan. The request is for a preliminary site plan on approximately 138 acres of property that will include 380 single-family detached and attached units and up to 175,329 square feet of retail commercial uses. It is generally located west of US 301 between Moccasin Wallow Road and Erie Road in Parrish. It's in the existing planned development, mixed use, North Central Overlay Zoning District, and also attached to the ordinance will be a schedule of uses that was voluntarily proffered by the applicant. The applicant's representatives, as well as Ms. Rainey, are here for presentation.
Very good, thank you. Again, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so I'd like to ask the commissioners, have there been any ex parte communications regarding this matter?
Yes, sir.
Nope.
Okay, seeing none disclosed, we're going to go on to the applicant's presentation. And again, please note that if you haven't been sworn in, you will need to be sworn in before you speak. So who is going to represent the applicant, do the presentation?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. I'm Pat Neal, 1003 59th Street Northwest in Bradenton. I have been sworn.
Very good.
I swore myself unofficially outside. Quintana, is that okay? I said I do.
So
if you wish to do it again in your formal fashion, you may.
I'll defer to the.
I think we need to do it again.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Again, if you haven't been sworn, please rise and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual...
I do.
Factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to the Planning Commission will be truthful and accurate? I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Quintana. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Happily, Mr. Chairman, I've been before this podium and various podiums at Manatee County since 1969. Bill, I actually had union pickets in 1975 during the slowdown. We had unionized carpenters at that time, and I couldn't get Wildwood Springs approved. So I got the Carpenters Union to come. It's been a long time at Manatee County. We have had a very great success over about 14,000 homes. This project is Neal Land and Neighborhoods, which is a partnership of John Neal and me. Primarily our business is to build home sites for public builders. And you'll see today the first of 4 different presentations on what we fondly call the North River Ranch. The Neals have built, I think, 99 properties in Manatee County, Florida. This will be a big project comprising more than 5,000 homes. We hope to put North Manatee River on the map as a place to be for people in our region, a place for employment, a place to live, work, play, and enjoy the beautiful physical benefits of Manatee County. So our team for the first time will start describing our vision for the North River area, which I fondly call the new center of the universe. The 2 approvals that have been already made are the villages of Amazon South for 2,000 dwelling units, and we have pending Havel Farms, which is 3,852 units. This property today is the redo of Morgan's Glen, approved for the first time in 2007. We are simply reenacting the earlier development plan to accommodate the new development and the changes occasioned because of the 2 schools. These 3 properties and such other properties as may be acquired will comprise our new North River Ranch community, which we hope to be building here in this community for the next 15 years. Mr. Chairman, Katie LaBar will explain the project.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning, Ms. LaBar. If you could please state your name and that you have been sworn.
Good morning. I'm Katie LaBar with Stantec, representing Neal Land and Neighborhoods, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
We are here to discuss Morgan's Glen. And I have control issues. I know we're all very surprised by that. Again, we're here to talk about Morgan's Glen this morning. It's a 138-acre property located just east of US 301. It spans Moccasin-Walla Road to Erie Road from north to south. This site is bisected by Fort Hamer Road through the center and the Buffalo Canal from east to west. As Pat indicated, the request today is for a new preliminary site plan for 380 residential units. 270 of those would be single-family detached, 110 would be single-family attached, with a maximum of 175,329 square feet of retail commercial at the northwest corner at Fort Hamer and Moccasin-Walla Road. This site is located, and I'm going to give the aerial, and I'll come back to the conceptual site plan. The site is located just south of the Villages of Amazon South, which is a residential, mixed-use community approved for 1,999 dwelling units and 60,000 square feet of non-residential development. It's located just east of the Copperstone neighborhood, as well as Summerwoods, which is another approved development that is currently being developed. This site is adjacent to the future State College of Florida campus along Erie Road. The new North River High School is under development as we speak, as well as the Barbara Harvey Elementary School just to the west of the site. The property is zoned Plan Development Mixed Use. It's in the North Central Overlay District, and it is in the UF3 Future Land Use category with a maximum gross density potential of 3 dwelling units per acre. I'm going to go back to the concept plan. As I said, the site is bisected by Fort Hamer Road from north to south, Buffalo Canal from east to west. The existing adjacent development in the area was an absolute consideration as we conceptualized the new vision for Morgan's Glen. And so single-family detached units are identified on the east side of Fort Hamer Road for that reason. The single-family attached units are appropriate for the adjacent single-family attached units in Copperstone, and so that's where they are located within this property. And then again, the retail at an intersection of two arterials, Moxon Wallow and Fort Hamer Road. For residential development, this site plan proposes 50-foot roadway buffers and 20-foot perimeter buffers that are consistent with the north central overlay along the east and west property lines. We do request specific approval, and we have staff support for that to reduce the roadway buffer requirements for commercial development along Moxon Wallow and Fort Hamer from 50 feet to 25 feet. And the reason for that request is so that the commercial development can be made visible to the traveling public. Pass-by trip capture is important, and we believe that staff is supportive of that. They've indicated so in their staff report, and we just think it makes good planning sense. We've also sought specific approval from the Greenbelt buffer requirements along the Buffalo Canal. We've got a space issue, basically. In order to provide adequate access for public maintenance of the drainage way, we needed to reduce that buffer from 20 feet to 10 feet, and so that's what the site plan indicates. We know that we can place all of the plantings that are required within that 10 feet, and so that is also identified on our preliminary site plan and landscape plans, and that's how we would present it at final site plan, and it would be eventually built that way. Finally, we've got a specific approval request to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 23 feet. Effectively, you still get 25 feet because we do provide, and we have a graphic in the site plan and also in the staff report that identifies a 2-foot grass strip that we would provide between the back of curb and the sidewalk so that you would have that effective 25-foot setback to the face of the garage. The site, primary access for the site is provided along Fort Hamer Road. We do have a resident-only egress along Moxon Wallow Road, and that access point is provided to ensure that the first phase of development has 2 means of access in accordance with the Land Development Code. The preliminary site plan contemplates 1.2 acres of recreational space. We have a recreation amenity on both the east and west sides of Fort Hamer. We provide approximately 35% open space in the development overall, while 25% is required for residential and 20% is required for commercial development. So we far exceed the minimum requirements for open space. There are no wetlands on this site, which made it really easy for our environmental consultants. And this site has historically been used and continues to be used for agricultural purposes to this day. So in closing, the North Central Manatee County, as you know, continues to grow and continues to transition from primarily agricultural development to suburban development. We believe that Morgan's Glen is designed with community in mind. It's going to contribute to the transition of parish in a very meaningful way through the use of appropriate buffers, superior site design, a mix of residential and non-residential use, and interesting architectural features. With that, I'd like to turn it over to John Neal.
Get me right? Nope, back one. So how do you go forward? Up. Down.
Good morning, Mr. Neal. If you
Good
could
morning.
please state your name and that you have been sworn.
My name is John Neal. I have been sworn.
Thank you.
8141 Lakewood Main Street, Bradenton, Florida. Aside from all the planning details which Katie highlighted, I'd like to additionally hit on some points. I call them the livability factors. These are the things that the developers think about, and this for our future home buyers. Morgan's Glen is part of a bigger project, as Pat has highlighted, and one of the benefits of being a master plan community, which this will be an element of, is that you get to think in a grander scale about how people will interact in the community and amongst the community. I think Katie mentioned, but I'm going to hit it a little bit harder, that Morgan's Glen has already been approved, but it sits amongst some great infrastructure that has been provided by Manatee County, provided by the Manatee County School Board, including a new elementary school, which is under construction, Mike, and a brand new high school, which I think looks fabulous. We have a Fort Hamer Road, which bisects the property right in the middle. That road will connect in the next 2 years to the Fort Hamer Bridge, which connects to Lakewood Ranch Boulevard, providing the commercial, additional 11 acres of commercial right on top. It's sort of hard to see on this, but on the top left of this site plan, the commercial. All of this in this master plan is integrated so that residents can connect to their shopping or to their schools via a multi-use bike trail or an integrated trail system or sidewalk. And as I said before, if you didn't want to walk, you could always drive on this great new road. In addition, we've stipulated and agreed with the school board for an interconnection to the elementary school to the west so that students can access without having to go on the major road. We expect that buyers in this proposed community will be families, primarily from Manatee County, but also from Sarasota, Hillsborough, Pinellas, and even from the city of St. Pete, as members of those communities recognize all the great benefits Morgan's Glen, North River Ranch, and the Manatee County have to offer. In conclusion, I ask, on behalf of myself and my partners who are here in the audience, that you recognize the master benefits and vision of this community, that you appreciate your staff's supportive recommendation, and that you support this new community with your vote today. I thank you for your time, and we are here at your pleasure. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay.
Just one question.
Mr. Mark.
Mr. Neal, the comments were that this was already an approved community. I'm new to the board here, so I wasn't part of this board when that, and of course, probably most of us weren't in 2009. Are there any substantial changes between the original as far as footprint, houses?
I'm going to take a shot at it, but I have Katie right behind me in case I miss.
Just for clarification, thanks.
The original plan was designed with more commercial and more intensity. Mm-hmm. We recognize the residential uses have to come before the commercial, so we've converted, downgraded, if you will, downzoned some of the commercial for residential uses. Is that close? Absolutely. Okay.
There'll be actually less traffic impact.
Yes, we think there's less traffic impact, and additionally, we have a huge road right in the middle with that's being designed with no traffic on it at all.
And for clarification, that road is named
Fort Hamer.
Fort Hamer. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Get it.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go to the to staff's presentation. Morning, Ms. Rainey. How are you doing?
Good morning. Dorothy Rainey for staff, and I have been sworn. And I have just one item to hand out that there was some corrections to. Just our little background discussion bulleted list of key information. My presentation is not going to show anything more than what the applicant did.
Ms. Rainey, could you confirm that you have been sworn, please?
Oh, I did. Dorothy Rainey for staff. I have been sworn.
Apparently, I missed that. Thank you.
Okay. But anyway, we'll go through it quickly. Morgan's Glen is the project before you. Next slide. Again, it's for a new preliminary site plan for 380 single-family attached and detached units and up to 175,329 square feet of commercial retail on the 138.18 acre site. There's a schedule of uses that we mentioned earlier that will be an Exhibit B to the ordinance that indicates the uses that will be allowable within the project boundary. And there's actually 4 specific approvals, I believe. The one that wasn't mentioned by the applicant is a reduction to the rear yard setback for pools and pool cages from 15 to 5 feet, which it's normally 15 in the North Central overlay. They're just asking to go to what all other outside of the North Central overlay allows. And then I've left off the one about the front setback of 25 feet reduction to 23 feet, but there's 4 of them altogether. Next slide. Here's the location. Next slide. Again, it's in the PDMU zoning already. and it's in the UF3 future land use category. This is again, the applicant explained everything. I just tried to highlight the roads. The Moccasin Wallow on the north edge of the property, of the project area, and of course Erie Road on the south, and the new extension of Fort Hamer bisecting from north to south. And then all the internal roads are getting access off of Fort Hamer in yellow there. The commercial component, as they mentioned, is up in the northwest corner next to the future elementary school with access from Moccasin Wallow, and I'm not sure if there may be internal access off Fort Hamer as well. Most likely there will be. And the access, of course, for the residential component is off of Fort Hamer, the yellow roads that were highlighted, which runs from Moccasin Wallow down to Erie. And there's one egress-only access point that's on towards the east end of the Moccasin Wallow frontage. I guess it's going to be gated like a swipe card or something like that. So. The surrounding uses that were mentioned to the north is the Bella Lago / Villages of Amazon South. To the south is the agricultural lands or the college-owned property. And then to the east is the single-family residences zoned A1 in the north central overlay, as well as village. And then west is the new school that's coming online and Copperstone subdivision. And we recommend approval of the preliminary site plan as well as it's actually 4 specific approvals with the stipulations provided. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions for staff? I have one question for Mr. Gerstenberger. In the staff report, I saw references to both 25% reduction in the discharge off-site and 50%. Which is the correct number?
For the record, Thomas Gerstenberger. Public Works Department Admin Support. Mr. Chair, with respect to the staff report for this particular project, Morgan's Glen, under stipulation B2, the requirement is for 50%.
You're not on.
Here he comes. Public Works guys.
You're going to have to start your solo over. So.
Nope.
I've got a mic here if you want to talk to it.
Let's try this one. All right. For the record, Thomas Gerstenberger, Public Works Department Admin sworn. Mr. Chair, with respect to the staff report for this project, stipulation under stormwater conditions, stipulation B2, the requirement is for a 50% reduction in the allowable rate of runoff for this project, considering the project is in Buffalo Canal Watershed.
Okay, very good. And again, I thought I saw some locations where it might have been referenced as 25, so you may want to just take a look at that. All right. Any additional questions for the applicant? I'm sorry, the staff.
Check.
Very good. Chris, have you been sworn? All right. Okay, we're going to move on to the public comment portion of the hearing. So this is an opportunity, if you have the desire to make a comment or statement regarding this application, to come forward. I have one speaker card for this application, Mr. Jake Skirloff. Good morning. If you could come forward, state your name and that you have been sworn. If you would, please raise your concerns, and then during a rebuttal or staff follow-up, we'll address those.
Okay, good morning. My name is Jake Skirloff. I have been sworn. I live at 11922 82nd Street East, Alton Parish. The original plans that I saw for this had a road attached to 82nd Street East. The plans that we just saw does not show that, so I want to make sure that that's the way it is. It shows like a water pond at the end of 82nd Street East.
Right,
So-
if you raise your concerns during rebuttal, the applicant will have the opportunity to speak to those directly.
So that was our main concern, me and other neighbors and stuff. That's really pretty much it.
Okay.
We just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a road going through to bring extra traffic, because our roads aren't built for it. They're only 18 feet wide. Some of them are only 8 feet wide. So we just wanted to make sure that we don't have the extra traffic coming through, because it was going to attach from Fort Hammer all the way through to 82nd Street and all the way to 301.
Okay, very good. And also, Ms. Rainey is the principal planner for this application. I know you said you were having difficulty downloading information. She could probably work with you directly to get you information. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to come forward? Again, if you would, just come forward, state your name and that you have been sworn. Good morning.
Lee Comstock, I have been sworn.
Thank you very much.
I live at 4178 Heron Way in Bradenton. And I was interested in what's going to happen to the wildlife that's on this property. I was watching a show, and they said the turtles, when the turtles are underground, they just come and they clean out the whole property and they bury these animals alive. Mm-hmm. So I'm concerned about, do they check for turtles? And there's other animals that use the same holes that the turtles do, and everything is buried alive. And I'd like to know how this is going to, well, how are they impacting the wildlife? What's happening to all those animals that live there? And are they just going to come in there and just clean off the whole place?
Very good, thank you. All right, is there anybody else who wishes to come forward and make a comment or statement? Anyone at all? All right, seeing no one else come forward, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we're going to go to the, first of all, is there any discussion, deliberation, Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Penley, I know you said you had some issues you would like to raise.
Yes, I would just like to state for the record several things. The plans, the last plan that I reviewed did not have a sidewalk along Erie Road. They do have a small portion of the property that fronts on Erie Road, so we would request a sidewalk there unless there is going to be the multimodal trail on the existing railroad line. In our school report, we had recommended that that be stipulated. The other thing that I wanted to say is that the plans show a connection between a roadway connection between the school site and the commercial portion of Morgan's Glen. We have been in negotiations with the Neals, and that portion of the negotiations has stalled at this point. That doesn't mean that it could not happen in the future, but I just want the commission to be aware that even though it's shown on the plan, that may not occur. We are currently in negotiations on joining forces to make improvements to Moxonwalla Road, because the school district is required to make certain improvements and Mr. Neal is required to make certain improvements, and we don't both need to be out there working at the same time. So those negotiations are proceeding, and I think John Neal did say that they have agreed to the pedestrian connection between the site and the school, and that would allow the students that even live on the other side of Fort Hamer Road to get to the school without going all the way up on Moxonwalla Road. So those are the only comments I have on this.
Okay, very good. All right. So again, are there any additional questions before we go to the rebuttals? Anyone? Okay. All right. So we're going to go to staff closing comments. Are there any closing comments from staff?
Good morning, Katie LaBar.
Oh, we're staff.
The staff.
Katie, you're no longer staff, so.
Robert Knable, I have been sworn, environmental planning. Just to address the one question from the public. Eco Consultants conducted surveys out there. They did not find any gopher tortoises, but within 90 days of construction, they will do another 100% survey, and if any gopher tortoises are found, they relocate them through the state process.
Right, and I think maybe the neighbor was referencing something that used to be allowed, an entombment, I believe is the way it was described, but it's not been allowed for some time. Is that correct? So gopher tortoises actually have to be relocated, captured, and then taken to a tortoise preserve?
That's correct.
So, okay, thank you. All right, very good. Any additional clarifications, Mr. Gerstenberger?
Mr. Chair, with respect to the citizen comment regarding accessing connectivity between the eastern boundary of this project and over to some of the existing road network to the east, including 82nd Street East, the preliminary site plan does not reflect any proposed vehicular or pedestrian connectivity between the eastern boundary of this project and the neighborhoods to the east.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gerstenberger, for that clarification. So, any questions for staff? Okay. All right, we're going to go to the applicant's rebuttal, and if you could, please focus on some of the comments that were raised, and it's especially from the school board, please.
Absolutely. Again, Katie LaBar with Stantec, representing Neal Communities and Neal, and I have been sworn. Specifically to, address some of the public comments, I know that they were addressed by staff, but we do not have an access to the east to 82nd Avenue. I can let Joel Christian, who is with Eco Consultants, speak to the surveys, but as was stated by staff, none were identified on property. But to the questions raised by the school district and sort of to help illustrate site realities, Morgan's Glen does not have frontage on Erie Road. There is a 100-foot FPL easement along the frontage of Erie Road, within which there's a rail corridor, and so it's located in this area. And so what the school district has requested is a sidewalk in that location. And from a physical standpoint, it's a right-of-way. My apologies, not an easement. It's a right-of-way. So a sidewalk cannot be located in that area. And so that's why it's not shown on the site plan in that way. We do show the connection to the west for pedestrian, and it's been stipulated that we will provide pedestrian connectivity at the very least to the elementary school. There will be sidewalks along Fort Hamer Road and crossings across Erie Road to the high school. And so we are providing pedestrian connectivity to the future school sites. But just because of the physical constraints, we're not going to be able to provide that sidewalk along Erie Road. And again, we don't front the street. We, as Mr. Penley stated, the applicant is continues to negotiate with the school district regarding vehicular connection. And so the site plan that is in your packet and that will eventually go to the board for consideration does identify an access arrow to indicate potential connection should that be negotiated. But at this point, there's still some uncertainty as to what that connection would look like, whether it's pedestrian only or vehicular.
All right, follow-up question on the preliminary site plan that was provided. That 100-foot along Erie Road is identified as a FPL
right-of-way.
Railroad right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
So which is it? Is it both?
It is.
It is a railroad right-of-way. Sorry, I'm Rob Engel with Stantec, and I have been sworn. It is a railroad right-of-way.
Okay. what is the impact of the FPL utility in there? Is it within the
FPL utility in that right of way? It's simply for the railroad.
Okay, thank you. And I think the question needs to be asked: Has the railroad been contacted to solicit the use of that right of way?
Yeah. So that is a separate process from Morgan's Glen. So the railroad right-of-way will be crossed with the construction of Fort Hamer, which is being undertaken with the county. So yes, we are working with FPL right now to get the formal approvals on crossing that railroad. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Shank, for clarification, does the school board have the right to question the applicant?
Only the Plan Commission members do, and the school board just lays its questions on the table.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. I think those are my questions I have right now. I think there needs to be a clarity when it goes in front of the board on these matters. So, very good. All right, any additional points of clarification or questions for the applicant? I think it would be helpful if Mr. Christian could explain what is done. It would be a bit of an education for some of the folks who aren't typically involved in these hearings as to the amount of effort that goes in with regard to the natural habitats and wildlife. Just briefly describe the process with regard to natural systems and the protected species that are.
For the record, Joel Christian with Eco Consultants. I have been sworn. Typically, how we evaluate these properties, we're required to do formal delineations with the state agencies for wetlands and surface waters. As part of that process, we're on the site flagging wetlands. We're identifying ordinary high water lines for the ditch systems. As part of that, we also traverse the property looking for signs of gopher tortoise, which is a keystone species, which means it indicates there may be other species there, such as eastern indigo snakes, the gopher mouse, gopher frog, all those other things that live in its burrows. Typically what we look at, focus on is the habitat that those species use, of which there's not a whole lot on this property. It's primarily agricultural row crop, citrus groves, those kind of things. So when you have a lot of equipment and planting and activities on there, typically the gopher tortoise don't like those, so they're not on site. For this particular one, we've driven the majority of the site because it's drivable. Looking for evidence of gopher tortoise burrows. We've seen none. Had we seen any, we would have mapped them. The county would have been aware of where those locations we identified them. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, if there's gopher tortoise on your property, they're going to require you to do a 100% survey within 90 days of the start of construction. So typically that full 100% survey is put off because we have to do it 90 days before, within the 90-day period. So it just gives us a background. If they are found within the property and there's construction activities going to occur within 25 feet of the mouth of the burrow, you're forced to address those. How are you going to address them? Typically what happens is we obtain a permit. You have to be an authorized gopher tortoise agent. Our office has 3 in-house. They're required to do the 100% survey. If they're within there and they need to be relocated, then that's something our office deals with taking them to mitigation banks or recipient sites that have been permitted for such. You're referring to the entombment process, which was known as an incidental take. There was an allowance historically. If it was less than 10 burrows on site, you could qualify for a incidental take permit, which in case you just pave over them and do them, they don't offer that option any longer, which I think is a great thing. So, but they are typically relocated off site to an area that's put under conservation, and the carrying capacity has been evaluated of that property to make sure you're not overloading it with tortoises, that kind of thing.
Very good. And from the preliminary site plan that was submitted with the application and from testimony, the site is under agricultural use, currently active with agriculture.
Historically,
does that
it's
have
been-
an impact on the habitat, the native protected species?
There's very little native habitat on this site, if any. There's a little bit of pine mixed oak on the eastern extension. That'd be an area we would really investigate once we get closer to final site plan approval, SWIFT mud approval, those kind of things. But we'll have to do a 100% survey over their habitat areas on site.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Neal.
Mr. Chairman, I have two very minor closing comments. First, we have long and successful experience working with Mr. Pendley. We'll make an appointment, Mike, and work out the matters that he brought forth. Second, in an abundance of caution, we will talk to the County Commission about the alignment of an existing effluent water line. Fort Hamer Road was displaced in order to save wetlands, but there's an existing water line on the old alignment, and I'm just informing the Planning Commission that there'll have to be some financial arrangements made for moving that, and that's still in negotiation.
Very good. And in hearing the testimony and the concerns brought up by the school board, that's really the thing that's troubling to me, is there's still things hanging out there. So the effort to have those issues resolved prior to going to the board, I think, would be very important for this application. Very good. Thank you. Any follow-up with the applicant? Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, we're gonna close the public hearing and go to deliberation. What's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Ron.
Based on the staff report, I move to recommend adoption of PDMU 1823P as recommended by staff.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Roth, second. Any discussions, deliberations on this application? Okay, seeing none, we're going to call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 4, the Prospect Road subdivision. Ms. Tusing, can you please introduce item number 4?
What? 4. Right? Item 4. This is PDR 1813ZG, which is Prospect Road subdivision. Gary Adams and Black Pearl Investment LLC are the property owners. Bel Air Capital Group is the contract purchaser. This is a rezoning, and it's a quasi-judicial hearing, and Jamie Schindewolf is the planner. This is a rezone of approximately 41.87 acres, which is commonly known as 7330, 7380, and 7416 Prospect Road. It's located in Sarasota, Manatee County, from agricultural suburban to planned development residential. There is a general development plan attached to the ordinance, which is for 143 single-family detached units. The applicant's representative, as well as Jamie Schindewolf, is here for presentation.
Very good, thank you. And again, this is quasi-judicial. I'd like to ask the Planning Commission, have there been any ex parte communications on this application?
Yes, sir. No.
Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move. Yes, ma'am.
There's one thing that I just need to hand out that was missing from the school report. It's a diagram showing the sidewalk, the location of the site, and then the location of Canal Elementary and the sidewalk that is being requested.
Very good, thank you. For the applicant, we have.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Scott Rudisil. I'm an attorney at Blaylock Walters. I've been sworn, and I'm here today on behalf of the Bel Air Capital Group, which is the contract purchaser of this site. I also have with me John Cavoli, who's the project engineer, in case there are any questions about the design of the project. I'm just going to give a brief introduction here I don't want to steal Jamie's thunder. Plus, this project I think is pretty straightforward, so there's not a whole lot to get into. The site is approximately 42 acres located on Prospect Road just north of Canaan Elementary in the county park site. Future land use designation is Res 6. Applicant is seeking rezone from A1 to PDR with a general development plan approval for, excuse me, 143 single-family residential lots. The density is at 3.4 units per acre, which is well below the maximum allowed in the Res 6. This is an infill project, which is encouraged by the comprehensive plan. Largely, the area around this site has been populated with residential developments. This project is designed to be compatible with those existing projects and to transition between them. There's no specific approvals being requested with the project, so it meets all the requirements of the county's code and comprehensive plan. There are two housekeeping items that I have before I wrap up. One is there's a stipulation, A5, related to affordable housing mitigation. We've received an updated analysis from the county, and they've determined that the project is no longer required to mitigate affordable housing, so we're asking that that stipulation be stricken. And before Mr. Penley gets into his analysis here, the school board has requested some off-site sidewalk improvements here, which you saw were added to the agenda. We recognize that we're going to have to address that before we get to the board, but it's come up relatively recently. We'll be working through that with staff. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but otherwise we're respectfully requesting a recommendation of approval.
Very good. Any questions for the applicant? So, Mr. Rudisil, could you please clarify that why the sidewalk was not proffered originally?
Well, let me clarify. There is a sidewalk proposed along the full frontage of the project. What's been requested now is to extend the sidewalk in both directions to make connections to an existing residential project on one side and to the school site on the other. So,
when you say extend the sidewalk, is that across the property frontage, or is that?
No, it's actually in one direction. It's across property owned by the county for the county park, and in the other direction, it's across property that's not part of this application. So we're talking about off-site improvements. It's just we got to figure out who's going to build it and who's going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, again, I was making a note, and you were suggesting which stipulation be struck?
I believe it's A5, and we have discussed it with staff. We just recognized it this yesterday afternoon.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. We're going to go on to staff's presentation. So.
We have to turn this in. All right. Good morning. Again, Jamie Schindewolf, Planner 1 with Manatee County, and I have been sworn. As stated, this is an application for a rezoning to planned development residential, and it includes a general development plan. You can see the site here. Just to go ahead and get started right away with what we were just talking about with the sidewalks. They have been asked to place sidewalk along the, can I point at this? Yeah. Along, can we see? A little bit. All right, along this right here, which is this little rectangle is not part of the proposed GDP and rezoning. So they've been requested to provide sidewalk here. And then this is the sidewalk south to the elementary school, which is located here. This portion is county-owned property. So just to clarify that, but we're working with them regarding the sidewalk there. They do provide, you'll see in the site plan in a moment, sidewalk on both sides of the internal streets, which is required within this distance of a school. And then as far as that stipulation goes, I can confirm, yes, we have gone through the process with economic development, and they've confirmed that they will not need to pay into the Affordable Housing Mitigation Fund. So staff is in agreement with removing that stip. So the current request is for 143 single-family homes. You can see the future land use here. They are within the allowable density for this future land use of residential 6. Their zoning, currently agricultural zoning, A1 specifically agricultural suburban, looking to go PDR. They are located, if I go, can you go back? Yes. Thank you. They are located in the coastal planning area. However, they have indicated that they will have privately owned and maintained infrastructure, which is something we encourage in some of the more sensitive coastal areas. There's an aerial. You can see the site plan overlaid on the aerial. You can see this home up here will remain, well, it's not part of this. They will not be impacting it with this project. And here's the general site plan showing those sidewalks on both sides of the internal streets as well as along their frontage. As far as compliance with the LDC goes, they do have 2 access points along Prospect Road. They indicate 2 open space areas. 26.23% of the site is designated as open space, which exceeds our 25% requirement by a bit. They have appropriate greenway buffers along the edges. The cul-de-sac here is calculated at 385.2 feet in length, which does not exceed our Land Development Code cul-de-sac requirements. As far as the comp plan goes, as I said, they are in compliance with the allowable densities in their comprehensive plan designation. And stormwater has been kind of a concern, but they are providing adequate stormwater mitigation on their site. Positive aspects from staff: frontage on Prospect Road, water and sewer is or will be available. The site is essentially infill. A lot of the area has already developed into single-family residential neighborhoods. And the proposed PDR zoning will allow the applicant to voluntarily prefer stipulations to address any possible compatibility issues that may arise. Negative impacts: it is adjacent to land that is zoned industrial light, so we are requiring a notice to buyers. The site is prone to flooding, and there are unfortunately no neighborhood ties available to other nearby single-family residential neighborhoods. You can see mitigating measures have been put in place to try to address some of these issues. Overall, staff recommends approval with stipulations and is happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions for staff?
I got a question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ron.
This is more a transportation traffic question. What is the level of service of Prospect Road right now between Whitfield and, was that Talavast? What is that road graded right now?
Nelson Galeano, Transportation Planning. I have been sworn. The level of service of Prospect Road between Talavas and Whitfield Avenue is C. The peak hour two-way serving volume is 1,510. Right now, the current traffic is about 350.
350? Is there any plan in the county CIP to make any improvements to Prospect at any point in the future, based on the level of travel that now will be on that road? I travel Lockwood Ridge Road every day, and people are now coming off of Lockwood Ridge and taking Prospect. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be any improvements to Prospect, you know, at any point in the future that the county has on their plan to help with further growth that will be on Prospect. Because I take Prospect now.
So you're the problem.
I'm the problem.
This is solely a selfish question.
Yeah. Yes, no.
Based on the information I have right now available, I cannot answer your question.
Okay.
The thing is, because this is a level of service C, we don't see any reason to make some functional improvement.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Any additional questions? Yes.
Can you explain why they don't have to contribute to the Affordable Housing Fund?
So essentially what that is if they are going to tear down any homes that are part of the county's affordable housing stock, which is something that our Economic and Redevelopment Opportunity Office, or Economic Development, they look at the value of the homes, and if they are going to be building over any of those homes that are in that stock, then they have to either replace or pay into the fund.
Okay. Mr. Gerstenberger, I apologize. The previous application, I said I thought there were some areas that there were some inconsistencies. It was actually in this application I saw there were references to 25% reduction and 50% reduction. So could you please clarify what the post-development runoff reduction would be?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, and you don't have to apologize. That was actually a error on staff's part. But with respect to this particular project, it was actually included. The stormwater stipulations were provided as a strike-through underline update to the update memo that was provided this morning. And that's with respect to this particular project, there is a total of 6 or 7 stormwater engineering conditions. And with respect to this project, concerning it is in Pierce Drain Watershed, this particular project would be required to reduce the allowable rate of runoff by 50%. A vast majority of this project is within either the 25 or 100-year floodplain delineation as provided by the applicant. Therefore, this project would be providing a substantial and sizable floodplain compensation area along the western boundary of this project, which is also along Pierce Drain itself. This project would be required to provide drainage and maintenance access easements for Pierce Drain, and also 2 tributary drainage ditches which are located along the northern and the southern boundaries of this project. In addition, as an update, this particular watershed, Pierce Drain, the county and SWIPMOD are undergoing a watershed management plan for Pierce Drain itself. The study itself will probably be completed at the earliest in 2020. In conjunction with the Pierce Drain Watershed Management Plan, there was an addition to the scope to undertake a compiled list of projects which could be provided to mitigate flooding that has occurred in the past couple of years and decades on Pierce Drain itself. The most recent example obviously being in 2017 when Center Lake and some of the surrounding neighborhoods experienced flooding. The thoroughfare network in this particular area, Talvas Road and Whitfield Avenue, were both underwater during that storm event. Staff is constantly, I would say diligently, we're either on the engineering or on the maintenance end, looking at what can be done with Pierce Drain as far as future improvements. Operations staff diligently undergo either inspection or maintenance activities on Pierce Drain on a constant basis. And at this time, I'll be happy to address any further questions the board may have.
For clarification on the provided, I think it was a preliminary site plan or the PSP or GSP,
General.
GDP that was provided. There's a 7.24 acre floodplain comp, and for clarification, that's solely for floodplain compensation, not for stormwater attenuation or treatment. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. The stipulations included with the stormwater stipulations do require that be a sole use floodplain compensation area.
Mm-hmm. And I know that we've had discussions regarding Pierce Drain previously, and the combination of a reduction in discharge and the floodplain compensation, this project would have a beneficial effect. The intent is that it would be a beneficial effect on the Pierce Drain Canal, the potential for staging, high stages.
Mr. Chair, with respect to the subsequent submittals, the final site plan, construction plan submittals, and the associated drainage modeling that would accompany those submittals, the project would be required to demonstrate that there are no adverse drainage impacts created by the development itself, and as you alluded to, that there are no increases in flood stages as a result of this development.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Any additional questions for staff? Thank you. Thank you. Before we go to the public comment portion of the hearing, I'd like to hear from Mr. Pendley. Mr. Pendley, what are your concerns related to this application?
I'd like to clarify one thing. The request that was made is not recent. Okay. Now, there was a revised school report that went out. I signed it on February the 5th, so that is recent. However, the request is not significantly different than the report that went out dated August 17 of last year. Revised report was issued because the plan's been revised. So let me just read part of the most recent report, and I'll tell you what the difference is between the two. It says, due to a lack of a complete sidewalk system on the west side of Prospect Road where the development is located, the school district is concerned with students getting safely to and from Canaan Elementary School. Per Land Development Code Section 1001.6, the school district requests that the sidewalk along the developer's frontage on Prospect Road connect to the existing sidewalk to the north, approximately 330 feet. Okay, that part is new, the 330 feet. And to the existing sidewalk that leads to Canaan Elementary's campus, which is approximately 888 feet to the south. If the sidewalk connection is not provided, students from this development could cross Prospect Road without a crosswalk to the sidewalk on the east side of the roadway. The students would then cross Prospect Road again at the mid-block crosswalk to access Canaan Elementary's campus. This area does not qualify as Florida Statute 1006.23 hazardous walking condition since there is a sidewalk along one side of the roadway. Transportation will not be funded for these students. So this development is currently zoned for Canaan Elementary School. We anticipate approximately 19 students coming out of that development, 19 elementary students, sorry. And the obvious concern is them having to cross the road twice, and as we've already heard, it's kind of a busy road. There is a crossing guard at the existing crosswalk, but most likely there would not be if they had to cross in front of this neighborhood. So pursuant to the Land Development Code, you have the authority to require the applicant to extend sidewalks if they're within 1,000 feet of a school. Admittedly, the 330-foot extension on the north side is not within that 1,000-foot. However, we threw that out there because it would link up with the existing neighborhood to the north of that and provide a complete pedestrian system in that area.
Very good. For clarification and for the board's understanding, the school board is a separate government.
Correct.
And you have a concurrency requirement where the applications have to go through the school board concurrency, correct?
School board concurrency, but sidewalks are not a part of that.
Okay, so that falls under the county's
Under the county, yes.
concurrency.
Yes.
And there's consideration from the county when the school board has an issue related to those. So, all right, gets a little convoluted on these matters. So, thank you for the explanation. So, Seems like again, an opportunity for further discussions. So, all right, very good. Any questions regarding the school report? Okay, very good. All right, we're going to move on to the public comment portion of the hearing, and I have a couple speaker cards for that. We'll call you up, and again, if you would, please state your name and that you have been sworn, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your statement, raise your concerns, and again, during the rebuttal or staff closing comments, your concerns would be addressed. The first speaker card I have is Mr. Bruce Shepard. If you could, please come forward and make your statements.
Good morning, I'm Bruce Shepard. I have been sworn, and I'm a resident in the cottages at Blue Vista, which is immediately north of the proposed project. I'm glad to see you've addressed and talking about some of the things we're concerned about. The biggest one is the stormwater, because I live on that big pond that's immediately adjacent to Pierce Canal, and we have a couple other people here, one of which also lives on that canal. And a couple of years ago, we experienced during a rain event, the water came up above top of bank on our retention pond, and that was not a hurricane, just a rain event. So our biggest concern is that, number one, that the impact is being considered. I'm glad to see Mr. Cavoli's here, because we haven't spoken in a lot of years. That increase in controlled stormwater means less percolation, which means more water going into our retention pond. And I don't know if you all are aware of this, but whenever the water gets up that high, all those bodies of water in there become one. The ponds that went in recently behind us, to the west of us, which is the one-stop landscape supply place, which is that whole property that used to be pasture land there, now has a giant pond there, and Pierce Canal, that pond, and our large pond all become one body of water all the way to Whitfield Avenue and sometimes across Whitfield Avenue. So our concern, when we hear that you're trying to stay on top of the maintenance of Pierce Canal, but I walked through there about a week ago to the corner of our property, our development, which would be the northwest corner, and you can see that the canal is not being maintained there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but visually, from what I can see, I can't get on their property, but from what I can see, it's completely grown over from there all the way to Whitfield Avenue. It's been maintained. We have an access road between our pond and Pierce Canal that goes underwater by a couple feet during a rain event that's heavy, but it appears that there's more maintenance that needs to be done now, not after they put in the other development. Hopefully the proposals or the things that are being looked at to maintain or improve Pierce Canal will be done before this development goes in. We witnessed recently, as you guys mentioned, that a neighborhood to our north had severe flooding. It was all over the news. And we don't want that to happen to cottages at Blue Vista. That is immediately, in other words, a new development went in next to them at a higher level. I don't know if it was a factor, but the people that live there feel it was, that it was high, they're low, so it made it worse. We don't want to see that happening here. We want to make sure that every measure is taken to ensure that our property doesn't become a flood zone. There's a lot of other concerns in regard to that, because we've already seen our properties that we paid extra for that were on that canal, on the rear retention pond. When the development, when the One Stop went in, which is a reclamation center, they destroyed our quality of life, and they also made it very difficult for us to sell homes on that back now, because it's extremely noisy. They start it before dawn.
Right.
And it goes on weekends, and it also goes on smoke where we can't even go outside.
Right. This application is really not going to be able to affect anything there, but I'm sure staff could probably provide you a mechanism for
the reason
recourse.
I brought it up, I know it wasn't exactly relevant, but the reason we brought it up is because things keep happening around us to devalue our properties and make them harder to sell. So anything you guys do to keep that from happening, we do appreciate it. Another thing I didn't notice on the site plan, did I see turn lanes? You have two new driveways going in?
We'll address those in rebuttal. So
okay,
thank you.
I think that's. Oh, I noticed there's two lots right on the property line between our property and their property. Are they going to allow two-story buildings on that property line?
Again, the easiest way to do this is to raise your concern, and then in rebuttal, the applicant can address your concerns directly. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
They're taking notes as you speak.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Mr. Steve Robinson. And if you have some of the same concerns, you can just say ditto. We've got them noted for discussion.
Got it. My name's Steve Robinson. I have been sworn in. I'm also a neighbor, and I'm in the cottage at Blue Vista. And my property actually borders the north side of the development. I've got all the same concerns about flooding, so ditto on that. To add to that, I've had the same concern about those two lots that are adjacent to our wall, which would be the northern boundary of the new development. Wondering what type of housing is going in here in terms of, are they going to be building like two-story townhomes, or what's the plan as far as what the actual makeup of the residences are? I know this is probably beyond the scope of what you guys do, but one of the concerns I've got is just whether there's really a market for all this housing that's going in around. So that's a bigger question, I know, but I'm kind of wondering, is feasibility and absorption, like whether there's a demand for this stuff, does that go into your decision at all? Whether it makes sense to add more units when there's all these units being built all around us? Kind of price point or what's going in, because obviously that can affect a neighboring neighborhood. If you're building inferior product, you can start dragging our values down. So just kind of wondering what the product is going to be, what the houses are going to look like. And to clarify or to add a little bit to the flooding concern, will they allow them to come in and dredge and fill? I mean, that's how our neighborhood was built. We were in a flood zone until they built the lots up high enough to get us out of the flood zone. Are they going to let the units in that, or the lots in that subdivision next to us go higher than our elevation? I know we're out of the flood zone now. We're not required to have flood insurance. Public service announcement for anybody in our neighborhood. It's like $400 a year for flood insurance. I get it. I've had a house flood before that was in Zone C. I didn't have insurance, had 2 inches of water in it, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it was really expensive to fix everything. So $400 a year is money well spent. That's a public service announcement.
You're not an insurance agent, are you?
No, I'm not. But I'll tell you, I've got flood insurance. So that's it. And if you could explain the two borders along the north boundary, they show kind of a green belt along our wall, and then the west boundary, which is on the Pierce Drain, are they building a berm up to create that big lake that they show on the western boundary? Just wondering what those boundaries are going to look like, where it kind of shows as like a green area. Now I'm assuming it's like a berm or something, but just curious about that. The north boundary and the west boundary, what's going to be there? Thank you.
Thank you very much. North and west boundary. Those are all the speaker cards I have. Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward and speak on this application? Anyone at all? All right, seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we're gonna move on to some discussions and clarifications on some of the concerns that have been brought up. Before we move on to the staff closing comments, we've heard some issues brought up, but In addition, could we get a clarification between buffers, which are typically landscape buffers, and then greenbelt buffers? So when you, in staff's closing comments, can we have a clarification with regard to those and how the two interact? So we'll go ahead to the staff closing comments if there aren't any items for discussion or deliberation at this point. Any concerns? Okay. So we'll move to staff closing comments. You're up.
Yep. Okay. Is it on? Yes.
You're on.
Thank you. Jamie Schindewolf, again, planner, Manatee County. Right, so with the sidewalk, the property owner just to the north, a little like not included in the plan. I know that they're agreeable to a sidewalk going through their property, and you know they want that to connect there. And so it just, you know, we'd have to work it out with the right-of-way and all of those allotments. You want to comment on the greenbelt?
With regard to the sidewalk, we asked Mr. Penley with the school board regarding the compelling factors, the regulations that require that, and it's Manatee County's Land Development Code. Does the Land Development Code allow for the requirement of sidewalk being constructed by an applicant that's more than 1,000 feet from? Or is there a?
Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I pushed my button. I forgot there was no button. I can respond. I was looking at the button.
Yeah. And then kind of a variation of that question, what if it's 1,000 feet ends halfway through the property? Are they required to construct it only to 1,000 feet? So.
Well, the staff can help me out here, but I'll just quote the code section, section 1001.6A, sidewalk 2, sidewalk extensions. It says the department director may require construction of sidewalks to extend a maximum distance of 1,000 feet beyond the outer limits of the proposed development in the interest of safety for handicap accessibility, or to extend sidewalks to existing or proposed attractors.
Okay.
Now, the definition of attractors isn't in the Land Development Code that I could see.
Mm-hmm.
So the school district in their analysis here is stating the school itself is an attractor.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, we have the Kunz case, and with only generating, 19 students, we would have to do a staff analysis, which we don't have here. This was given to me in the update memo yesterday, so I don't know if it's new or not, but I can't respond to that. Where the rational nexus is met with 19 students require this developer to pay the whole cost.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some cost sharing, but I question whether the whole cost would be borne by this one project. We have to look into that.
Okay, very good. And I think you made a point of clarification to my variation on the question that it's from the most extreme point, 1,000 feet of the
That's
property.
what it says here.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. So even though it's more than 1,000 feet from the school, the property is not it still covers that area, so, or something like that. So, all right, very good. And then I'm sorry I interrupted the greenbelt landscape buffer discussion.
I think that
Rob, can anyone have been sworn? Your question again was?
We see on the proposed general development plan both landscape buffers and greenbelt buffers. Please clarify or provide some explanation as to when these greenbelt buffers are necessary and provided as opposed to a typical landscape buffer.
So the landscape buffers are intended for the perimeter, usually the perimeter and along the roads, and then when there's open space areas, we have those buffers that, and those are generally where, like, say if they're removing trees or something, they can relocate those trees there on site without having to pay into the tree fund and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And greenbelt buffers, those landscape buffers are usually adjacent to rights of way roadways.
Correct.
Or neighboring uses, commercial, residential uses. Greenbelt buffers are adjacent to things such as the Pierce drain.
The drain, yeah, the drain, the detention facilities, things
Right.
like that.
So the property to the south has a greenbelt buffer. Why does that have a greenbelt buffer between the southern border?
To be honest, I'm not actually sure on that. I'll have to get back to you.
That's the reason I have the question is why are we showing a greenbelt buffer there and not a landscape buffer? And I realize you didn't prepare the plan, so I didn't know if that was a county requirement or maybe the applicant.
Maybe the applicant can talk to that because it also. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Sorry to. So, any additional questions or comments of staff? Yes, Mr. Gerstenberger, I was going to ask about maintenance of canals, and I'm sure that's probably what you have.
Mr. Chair, with respect to the maintenance activities that are occurring within this particular area, this map exhibit that I've brought up on the overhead identifies the drainage systems which are under constant maintenance by the county. As I alluded to previously, there are drainage ditches both on the southern and the northern boundaries of this project that are conveying runoff from Prospect Road that drain into Pierce Drain, which is along the western boundary of this project. With respect to maintenance, the Planning Commission knows very well, and the board, we've had a series of work sessions that are ongoing with respect to a stormwater utility fee. And one of those components of the stormwater utility fee is to determine whether or not or what improvements, not only what improvements can be done per se on a watershed of this nature that are identified in the watershed management plan, but also as far as level of service of maintenance activities based upon current levels of service, current rates of service that are ongoing on our drainage systems, and what a stormwater utility fee can do to not only make improvements to these particular watersheds, but also to look at the frequency of maintenance on these particular watersheds. So those are all aspects that are well outside of the nature of this particular project that are being looked at a countywide level as far as the stormwater utility fee goes. As far as some of the concerns and questions that were brought up during public comment, if we could get this zoomed in just slightly. With respect to the surrounding developments within this particular area, and obviously this particular project being highlighted in yellow, just to the north is the project where a couple of the residents that spoke during citizen comment were located, which is the Cottages of Blue Vista subdivision, which used to be known as Savannah during final site plan construction plan submittals. That particular project, if you look closely on this exhibit and the western boundary of this particular subdivision, you'll see basically the same design intent, the same construction that is being implemented and utilized for this project as well, which is to have floodplain compensation areas right along Pierce Drain, which allow for the free flow of floodwaters to either enter or to discharge or outfall back into Pierce Drain. One of the comments that was made was basically how Pierce Drain basically expands outside of its banks of the canal itself to utilize those compensation areas along the canal itself. And Cottages of Blue Vista is a prime example of that. To the north, Fiddler's Creek is another prime example of that. And as was brought up, the one-stop landscape property, which is on the opposite side of Pierce Drain in this particular area, is another prime example of where floodplain compensation areas are located along Pierce Drain itself. And as you had brought up earlier, Mr. Chair, those particular floodplain compensation areas that are located along Pierce Drain are sole use facilities. Those are not intended to provide water quality treatment or attenuation of runoff from any of the existing development that has occurred in this particular area, whether it's Cottages of Blue Vista or Fiddler's Creek or the engineering intent for this project as well. There was also a concern about the elevations of this proposed for this particular project with respect to surrounding areas. And chronologically, the flood maps, and I'll go ahead and bring that one out as well, if I got it. And obviously zoomed out. The sea of blue that is shown on this map is the present Zone A FEMA floodplain delineation, which was identified, started being identified back in the 1992 effective maps. There was an update in 2014 of the effective maps. There was essentially no changes made to the Zone A coverage within this particular area. Now, one thing I would note about Zone A floodplain coverage is, unfortunately, it does not identify a base flood elevation in conjunction with this floodplain delineation. The closest base flood elevation that is determined on Pierce Drain in this particular area is up at 63rd Avenue East. So vis-a-vis this particular area, there was no identified base flood area. Cottages of Blue Vista, there was no identified base flood elevation. For Fiddler's Creek, there was no base flood elevation that was identified either. For the Center Lake project, for Center Lake subdivision, the particular subdivision that experienced the heaviest flooding during the 2017 storm event, those construction plans for that particular project were actually approved prior to the 1992 firm, prior to the Zone A delineation. With respect to the finished floor elevation, the elevations that are utilized within this particular area, there was recently a letter of map revision that was actually approved and accepted by FEMA for a project just to the south of this particular development, the University Village project, where I've got my finger pointing right now. That particular project, there was a letter of map revision that was most recently done for that project. And that particular project, there was a base flood elevation that was finally identified for Pierce Drain in this particular area. That particular elevation is 18 feet, NAVD, North American Vertical Datum. That particular elevation would be utilized to establish the base flood and the subsequent 1 foot higher elevation to meet flood protection elevation for this project. With respect to Cottages of Blue Vista and Fiddler's Creek, those particular projects were also designed based upon that 18-foot elevation back during staff review, even though there was no base flood elevation determined by the firm maps. So at this time, I'll be happy to address any further questions that Planning Commission may have.
In the FEMA flood zone that you showed, it still presumed that the flood was in the, I'm sorry, what's the community to the north?
Center Lake was no, just to the north is Cottages of Blue Vista.
Right. Can you pull that down a little? It's
sure,
a little off
certainly.
screen. So we're still showing that as being floodplain. Is that an accurate representation?
As was brought up, that particular subdivision went through a letter map revision as well to take the lots outside of the 100-year floodplain. Our county GIS layers are not updated to include the letter map revisions that are provided by the flood insurance, by FEMA through the flood insurance rate maps.
Right.
So that particular delineation would not be shown on this exhibit.
So the letter of map revision is a text amendment to a map. There's a reference saying that it's no longer in the the flood zone that would require, per our public service announcement, flood
Would require
insurance.
flood
Yeah.
insurance, correct.
So even though it's represented as being in the floodplain, the letter map revision has removed it. So
Correct.
graphically, it's still shown, but by text, it's been removed.
That is correct,
Okay,
Mr.
all right, very good, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to back to you on that. So there's a separation with the green belt, with the green belt buffer. So it's a 15-foot green belt buffer is required around, for separation for residential. And then,
Separation from?
From the PDR requires that you have to have it under section 4.
And it's separation from agricultural type uses? or-
Anything.
Just anything, okay.
And then on the question you had about the map, there's a 30-foot drainage easement also.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you very much. Any additional questions for staff? Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to the applicant rebuttal. And again, if you could, please focus on some of the things that have been brought up from the neighbors and during the dialogue here. Try to get some clarification and address some of the concerns that may be out there. Thank you.
Sure, I'll do that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Again, my name's Scott Rudisell, for the record. First, I want to go to the comments from the school district. I think the short answer is we understand the concern. We're going to work to address it before we get to the board. I do want to clarify, though, that we didn't receive comments in August. It doesn't sound like staff did either, so I have no doubt they prepared comments. I blame Acela. And I think everybody would probably recognize that as the potential issue. But we'll get it resolved before we get to the board.
Object.
To address a couple of the questions from the public, there are turn lanes proposed, left turns at both of the entrances to the project. They haven't been, designed yet with finality, but that is what's planned there. As far as the housing type, these are single-family detached lots, so they're not going to be townhomes. The height is, we're under the same 35-foot height requirement that all the rest of the residential projects in the area are. So I don't know what they'll be other than a single-family detached home. And the question about the berm, there's no berm proposed on that northern boundary line. It's going to be, there's a drainage easement there with a ditch and then the required landscape buffer. And I think that covers it all, but I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Did you address the northern boundary? The western boundary is you also indicated no berm. Is there anything else proposed along the western boundary?
It would be the same 15-foot landscape buffer, and then obviously there's a big floodplain compensation area, and there's the wetland mitigation area.
Very good. And then I think maybe I'd hate for the engineer to come to the hearing and not get a chance to speak. So, so with regard to the floodplain compensation area and the stormwater management area, and I'm sure you've done some preliminary analysis with regard to the western boundary. Is there going to be? There may not be a berm, but can you give us an idea of what the top of bank may?
Sure. John Cavoli Engineering, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's as Tom had described. What this is designed is like everything similar in recent years along Pierce Drain. Pierce Drain will come out of the top of its banks and fill these big areas. These areas will also be tied hydraulically with a series of pipes. The one-stop landscape supply, for example, has a series of 60-inch diameter pipes that allow Pierce Drain to come in before it goes over the top of the berm. Our intent on this is to actually maintain the maintenance way for maintenance for the county on a regular basis, but allow as much floodplain compensation as possible in order to help to improve the Pierce Drain conveyance and as well as storage volumes that this area needs. And that ties also in with the limitation of the 50% discharge from existing conditions to post-development conditions. So we not only hold more back, but we compensate for whatever we're encroaching into.
Okay, very good. And with regard to the I think there was a concern or question, at least regarding the neighboring homes. Have you had an opportunity to start looking at what the finished floor elevations are going to be in this area with regard to potential?
Well, the finished floors, as Tom and I had a preliminary meeting, and the finished floors have to meet the FEMA requirements. We're not going to go any higher than that. So, I mean, technically, if the adjacent properties to the north of us had to meet those requirements, we have to meet them too. So we're going to be at either the same or similar elevations unless FEMA changed something from when they did their design to when we did ours. As far as I understand, there isn't any difference. And then with regard to the separation, the county, like Tom had said, there's a drainage easement for a drain that drains Prospect. And then on top of that, we add a landscape buffer. So there's a decent amount of separation between us and the property to the north, as well as the school board to the south.
Okay, very good. Are there any other issues or points the applicant would like to bring up?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, all right. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Okay, all right, very good.
We just need a moment before y'all vote on this. I believe that there's a drainage stipulation that is missing, so we're trying to clarify that. So if
Okay.
we could take a break, or, after a deliberation.
Okay, all right. So if there's no other pertinent information, any additional testimony, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and actually, we'll just go ahead and take a break now. So it's I have 10:45. We'll take a 10-minute, 10:46. Is that the official time? Apple's not the official time. We'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 10:56. Thank you.
that. I didn't catch that yesterday. Oh.
All right.
I'm going to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to call the meeting back to order. And before the recess, I closed the public hearing. I need to reopen it because we have to make a modification with regard to the proposed stipulation. So I'm going to go ahead and reopen the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, there was a discrepancy that was found in the update memo with respect to the stormwater engineering stipulations. So just for the sake of clarification, Guantana's sending to the rest of the Plan Commission an email that I had sent out about a day or two ago with respect to the stormwater stipulations that should be included in the staff report. So with that said, the staff report would include a total of 7 stormwater engineering stipulations. They would be labeled C1 through C7. And they would include the 50% reduction in runoff, floodplain mitigation, drainage easements as required for pierce drain and tributary systems, some design elements, and then the 7th stipulation would be one about connectivity between the floodplain compensation area and pierce drain itself.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions regarding that matter?
So the stipulations would be A1 through A4? We're leaving out the housing?
A1 through A4.
Yes, ma'am.
Going on the fly. All right, very good. Is there any other matters before we close the public hearing? Mr. Pinley.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Mr. Rudisell and I talked during the break, and I fully understand that he hasn't seen the August 17th staff or school board report. It did make it to the county. It is attached. If you pull this agenda item up, it is the attachment. What we have agreed to do is to get together between now and the county commission hearing and look for resolutions on how we can get access to the students from their neighborhood. And let's see, what else was there? Oh, the other thing is we do not send our comments directly to the applicant. They always go to the county, just like any other agency would. So with that said, I think we'll come to some resolution prior to the county commission meeting.
Okay, very good. Very good. All right. Any other matters before we close the public hearing? Just for the record, does the applicant wish to make any rebuttals with regard to the information that's been introduced since your last rebuttal?
No, I have no rebuttal. I just want to put on the record that we're in agreement with the stipulations as proposed.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll deliberate or entertain a motion. So
Mr. Chair?
What's the pleasure of the board? Mr. DeLesline.
I move to recommend approval of Manatee County zoning ordinance PDR 1813 ZG, approval of preliminary site plan stipulations A1 through A4, B1 through B8, C1 through C7, D1 and E1 as recommended by staff.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ron, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, the chair is going to call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to item number 5, Taco Bell / Bradenton. So, Ms. Tuzing, could you please introduce this item?
Yes, sir. This is item number 5, PDMU 1818P. It's a Taco Bell in Bradenton. It is a quasi-judicial hearing, and Jamie Schindewolf is the planner. This is a preliminary site plan for a 1,900-square-foot restaurant on a site of approximately 7.269 acres, commonly known as 3203 53rd Avenue East in Bradenton. And it's in the PD, it's already zoned Plan Development Mixed-Use Zoning District. The applicant's representatives, as well as Ms. Schindewolf, are here for presentation.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we're going to, who's representing the applicant? Very good. If you could, please come forward and introduce your application.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Craig Cornelison, Cornelison Engineering and Design, professional engineer. Here with Ben DeVries, he is the...
And you have been sworn?
And I have been sworn, yes. I get my address, 38039 Old Fifth Avenue, Safford Hills. Here with Ben DeVries, he is the construction program manager for the local franchisee. I am representing the landowner and also the franchisee Taco Bell. We're here to request approval of preliminary site plan for a Taco Bell. The site is located there you go. I don't know if you can read that. On State Road 70 between 33rd Street and 32nd. Here is a quick view of the site plan. Here's a quick view of the site plan. The site will be, access points are here. This will be a right-in, right-out only. And here, this will be a full access. Sorry. I know Jamie's going to have a presentation, so I won't kind of go through the same things, but you're here to answer any questions if you have any, but I'm assuming at this point we all know what a Taco Bell is. If not, I can explain it.
This is part of a larger PSP, is that correct? Or, I'm sorry, a larger PD, preliminary development, or plan development? I'm sorry. Okay, it's not, all right. I misunderstood. I thought I heard 7 acres in there somewhere. 0.7.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Now we got to start all over.
It's a PDMU, so, okay. And I guess with land use is ROR, and I believe we're consistent with both.
Very good. And are there any questions for the applicant, or, okay, all right.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify for the record that while there's reference to Taco Bell in this discussion, the name of the establishment is irrelevant. It's the use we look at, which is a drive-through establishment, and the staff analyze those criteria just for drive-through establishment. Doesn't matter the name of the establishment or the design.
Understood.
Okay, we'll go with fast food that sells a lot of tacos.
It's a little hard to ignore the fact that there's a bell on the restaurant, so. And the word taco under it, so.
Yeah. Well, it's not legally binding, and some of the citizen comments are focusing on that particular restaurant, and we have to focus on the use drive-through establishment.
Yes, ma'am. And again, the intent of the Planning Commission is to determine if it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code. Everything else, such as the particular uses, are ancillary and just points of interest. So, very good. Did you have any additional information or testimony for the application?
No, we've worked with staff on some additional, like some site plan revisions that they had requested, and I think we've done everything. We've done our traffic studies and everything that goes in with it.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And for the record, this is quasi-judicial, so looking for an affirmative response if there's not been any ex parte communications or negative, so nothing disclosed? Okay, very good. Thank you. Staff's presentation.
Hello again.
Good morning.
Jamie Schindewolf, Manatee County Planning. I have been sworn. This is a preliminary site plan for a restaurant with drive-through facilities. The proposed restaurant is 1,900 square feet, which is an FAR of 0.06 on this particular property. For context, it's located approximately there in the county, south, just east of 301 on State Road 70. Surrounding it, I'm not sure the best way to point. We'll use the mouse again. We have a McDonald's restaurant. We have a decor and design store. We have strip commercial to the south, a mobile gas station, Ollie's Bargain Outlet over here, which is off the map, but it's over here. And then single-family residential just to the north, as you can see. The future land use for this property is retail, office, residential. The range of potential uses include neighborhood, community, and regional serving commercial uses mixed with medium and high-density residential, lodging, office, public, semi-public, schools, and recreational uses. A restaurant with drive-through facility is considered a neighborhood/community serving commercial use. The zoning for this particular property is PDMU, Planned Development Mixed Use. In 1925, the Central Gardens plat was recorded. As far as we can tell, there is no ordinance associated with this PDMU zoning. It appears to have been zoned this way back in 1989 when the county did their zoning maps. And then July 2018, we received this application for the fast food restaurant with drive-through facilities. This is a bit of a cleaned up site plan. It may still be hard to see on the overhead. But just to point out, the front setbacks they're showing are 31 feet, requirement is 30. The setbacks to the two side streets, they're giving 35, that is the code requirement. The north boundary setback is 69.2 feet, their requirement is only 15. The restaurant itself is oriented to State Road 70. We did work with the applicant already with some site design elements. We encouraged them to move the dumpsters that's right here, close to the restaurant as opposed to close to the residential, for example. Staff analyzed the 531 criteria for drive-through establishments. Some of the criteria was not applicable. For example, this is not along an urban corridor. However, those that were applicable, they meet. Drive-through aisles are not adjacent to residential and are over 30 feet from the adjacent residences. The stacking is appropriate, and a bypass lane has been provided. Positive aspects include that this proposal does meet the standards of our land development code and complies with the comprehensive plan. The applicants have been open to design changes to lessen the impact on nearby residences. A negative, of course, is that a fast food restaurant adjacent to residential can create negative externalities, and we've worked to try to mitigate those negatives with site design and buffering. It comes down to a question of how we address compatibility in these instances, and that is through screening, fences, vegetation, and of course the site design. So because of the land development code and the comprehensive plan analysis, staff does recommend approval of this site plan.
Very good. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're gonna move on to the public comment portion of the hearing. And again, if you would, when I call your name, I've got several speaker cards here. When I call your name, if you would come forward, state your name, and that you have been sworn. The first speaker card I have is Antonio Estes. And again, the process will be you make your comment or raise your concerns, and then during rebuttal or staff comment, we'll try to address those specifically. So thank you.
Okay. My name is Antonio Steves, and I've been sworn in. I live in that area. My concerns right now, when I bought the property, 70 was really a one-lane highway. I know that might not be relevant, but it is, as far as I'm concerned. And since then, now it's a two-lane highway, one going, one coming. Now it's a 6-lane highway, 2 turns, so it's about 8 lanes anymore, and since then, they put in, let's see, there was the commercial environment that the staff just mentioned, which was, it's 2 auto parts stores and 1 window dressing environment. And I don't know if anybody looks at the impact of the drainages in that area whatsoever, because all that's going to affect the way the residential people live. Such as, for instance, we have water nonstop in our drainage areas. We have called, and they came in there and cleaned it up before, but it's set up where it just does not drain. Somebody needs to do something about that. Number two is a lot of those areas are septic, and that's going to affect the entire environment there. I think the board needs to look at everything that exists in those environments before they say yes or no to something and listen to the public a little bit. I know it's a small community, but still a community no matter how you look at it. And I think everybody should pay attention to, what the residents have to say. Now, on the 31st and 32nd, if you look or you get familiar with it, it's 51, which there's no 51 there, but on the map shows 51 in there. And if you look at it, there's no way to turn an 18-wheeler. We have 18-wheelers once in a blue moon coming through there, and they're going people's properties right now in order to make the turns. Are you going to stop that when Taco Bell starts to deliver, even more stuff in there? How is the traffic? Right now, the only traffic going through there is the residents themselves. Are you going to address the traffic that's coming out of there for the public that are not used to any kind of traffic whatsoever, other than 70 that's gone from 2 lanes to 6? So I think the board needs to take a lot of consideration where they make, even if they decide to vote a yes, where they're going to put the entrances and exits. That's a very small little community. If you look at the map and look at the community itself, it's very small. It's not designed to take the impact of the traffic that they are planning on putting there. And I think before anything gets voted, I'd like to know if any kind of impact studies have been done to any of those areas. I heard
Go ahead and finish your thought.
I heard the stuff earlier saying that in the other environment, the building before by Prospect, how the drainage is set up. Nobody was saying that they don't have any drainage. Even in that place, we have the drainage too, but is it good enough? Are you guys really planning for the future? There was a news thing on the news not too long ago that the septic systems in Florida are really getting bad and going to be studied even more. I'd like to know what the board does about any of these concerns when you keep on building and building and building. What are you doing about all the rooms?
So, just for clarification, is your concern with the existing residential homes being on septic?
No, it's everything. It's the traffic. It's the building itself.
Specific to septic systems, like your house, do you have a septic system?
Yes.
Okay. And your concern is with the existing homes having septic?
I'm talking about the drainage affecting the entire area there because everybody is in a septic. You have the board, however you refer to in here, you have done nothing to improve all the improvements that have been done all around us. That still remains poorly designed by the town board, whatever.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, the next speaker card I have is Faithia McKibben. And it's still morning, so good morning.
Morning. My name is Faithia McKibben, and I am sworn in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have 2 properties on 32nd Street down next to 52nd. I have a corner lot there at 52nd and 32nd. And again, with the drainage, we find that as the commercial buildings are placed there on State Road 70, that those areas are raised, and our property there at the back is lower. And we always have standing water in the ditches. We did last year have the county come out and dig those out for us, but they explained that they cannot dig any deeper than the drain pipes that are there, making the State Road 70 side higher than my side as far as elevation, and the water cannot drain. It's not possible. So I constantly have standing water in our ditches, causing problems with mosquitoes. A big concern of mine is also the traffic flow. If you look at the map coming off, going east of State Road 70, there is a turn lane, but the turn lane enters 31st Street, not 32nd Street where their proposed entrance is. The traffic flows onto 31st, would come down 31st towards 52nd, go through 52nd and up 32nd to that entrance. I don't like the entrance being for the Taco Bell on 32nd because of that probability. Our streets are very old and very narrow and have degraded along the borders to the point where it is almost one-lane traffic. And we have to pull to the side to allow other cars to pass us on those streets. The pedestrians, the children playing, the children riding their bicycles have to pull all over into the grass to allow cars to pass. There's no sidewalks. There are ditches along all sides of those streets. 52nd Street is not a properly paved road. It is a dirt road with an overlay of asphalt, which has degraded to the point that it is no better than a grainy dirt road. It now encroaches on my property corner there on 52nd and 32nd and has come in about 5 feet around that corner. I don't believe that our streets can handle the additional traffic that's going to happen. Also, my concern is the hours of operation of this particular establishment. They are open until 2 a.m. in the morning. And the type of people that are going to be coming through our neighborhood potentially at that hour may perhaps be intoxicated, and especially on weekends. And we find...
Again, go ahead and finish your thought.
Find that the people coming in the neighborhood will see our homes. We are very quiet there. And we're afraid that they're going to view our homes, they're going to view our properties, and as you know, people covet what they can see. Hold on, I'm acclimating. And several of the families on our block are vegetarians. We don't mind drive-through restaurants, but we understand that quite a few restaurants will pipe out their food smell so that they can entice people to come into their restaurant. Ooh, that smells like, you know, whatever restaurant. And with that also comes particles and oils from that venting process. And we are concerned that these particles will coat our neighborhood, and the smell, for at least myself, is not acceptable to have to smell all the time. So between the impact on our streets and the drainage, I guess those are my main issues that would probably count to the board.
Very good, thank you. Thank you. The next speaker card I have is Stephanie King. Again, if you could, please come forward, state your name and that you have been sworn.
Hi, Stephanie
Hello.
King. I have been sworn.
Thank you.
Is there any way to pull that map back up on the screen?
Which map?
Not the black and white site plan, the one you had up before that that showed the neighborhood?
Aerial.
Yes, the aerial, thank you.
She can lay that on the overhead and you'll be able to
Yeah,
reference.
that'd be perfect.
Okay, or this is a little bit closer, but it doesn't show quite as much.
This is good.
Okay.
This is good.
So if
Oh,
you could
sorry.
lay it on the target and it'll be projected on the screen.
Okay, so I just wanted to, first of all, I want to reiterate, the entire neighborhood back there is on septic. So I don't know if that's a drainage concern or not, but we're all on septic. I know staff talked about medium and high density residential area. I have almost 2 acres. It's not high density. Having almost 2 acres, I am concerned about what this might do to my property value or my livability. I wanted country in town, and now I'm getting too much in town. The reason I wanted the map is because it's kind of hard to see, but so they talked about the auto zone and the window decor here, but they have a parking lot that goes straight through. There's no need for the traffic to come back here and cut through. So I wanted to kind of reiterate also what Ms. McKibben just said. There's no left turn here, and the traffic is backed up at 33rd consistently. So we're afraid they're going to turn here, come back, cut through, and then to come over. And I think it's a huge concern. I mean, I understand it's a really small neighborhood, but there are 42 families. There is pride of ownership. This is a nice, older neighborhood. And there's going to be at least 50 families that are impacted by this. There's also a bus stop on 32nd with little kids right across, on 32nd, right across where, on the site plan, their entrance and exit is on 32nd. So I assume that would have to be moved, that bus stop. The staff also referred to the mobile station across the street here. That, I don't know exactly how long, but I know for at least 2 years it's been abandoned. I think that would be a great location for a fast food with a drive-through. They are also clearing land next to the racetrack, just slightly further down on 70, less than a third of a mile, and that would also be a good location for a fast food with a drive-through. Like, I have children, I use fast food, I just don't want it in my backyard. So I think there's other opportunities. The last thing, well, I guess not the last thing. They mentioned how it was already PDMU. Every lot in that neighborhood, this is all residential back here, this is all PDMU, unless it's a duplex. Like I said, I have almost 2 acres. It's actually zone duplex. So it's not like, oh, it's PDMU, there's other commercial buildings back there. There's not. There are single-family homes and duplexes. And if you do go forward with it, I would at least ask that you provide some other type of a buffer besides a 6-foot PVC fence. That's not really a buffer. And if none of this works, maybe they could put an entrance and exit on 70 instead of on 32nd. Honestly, if the entrance was, oh, sorry.
Again, go ahead and finish your thoughts.
If the entrance was just on 33rd, I wouldn't probably feel as strongly. I still don't want it there, to be honest with you, but the fact that there's an entrance on 32nd is really what I think is taking down the neighborhood, so to speak. And I think they have other locations that would make them just as much money without impacting 50-some families. So I think that's it.
Thank you very much
for your time.
Thank you. Just one question for you. What is the feeling that the entrance off of 32nd is more impactful than off of 33rd? Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, okay, so now I need the map back. Okay, this might be better. So, no, it's not. It's so small, but 32nd is right here, okay? And 31st is right here. There's no left turn into 32nd from 70.
Okay.
And this light gets backed up. So the concern is people are going to get to this 32nd entrance, people are going to turn down 31st, come past all these houses to get in over here instead of waiting to turn left and turn left again into the establishment on 32nd or 33rd where there's a light. Also, when you come out of the Taco Bell or any fast food establishment, if it's backed up on 70 and you're headed west, are you more likely to just turn right out of Taco Bell to cut through the neighborhood and come back out on 31st? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker card I have is Gerald Alaura. Thank you.
My name is Gerald Alaura, and I've been sworn in.
Thank you.
I own the property to the southern part of my property backs up against this property. I'm on 33rd Street, okay? And I primarily came here because I never saw a site plan, but I was concerned about what the landscape buffer would look like, okay? And now that I'm listening, that's all I really wanted to know, but now that I'm listening to everything everybody else says, I want to address that intersection on 33rd and 70. coming from the north, coming south, that intersection, that southern direction on 33rd is 3 lanes wide at that traffic light. One is for right turn lane only, one is for straight ahead to go to 33rd, and one is to make a left-hand turn going east on Route 70. And right now, that traffic on that intersection is backed up beyond my property most of the time. Now, I don't understand, and I don't want to be a traffic engineer, I don't understand how you're going to make people come from either direction on 70 to get into this Taco Bell from 33rd Street. It's, I mean, people that are trying to make a left-hand turn from going eastbound onto 33rd to get in, they're not going to be able to get in because that's all going to be backed up already. And it's, all I can tell you is I do have concerns of how they're going to address the traffic flow. Okay? Other than that.
And when we go back to the applicant and staff, we'll look at that. Just for clarification, there's no opportunity to do a left-hand turn off of 53rd or 33rd. That it's a directional right in, right out. So we'll look at it.
I didn't understand that.
We'll when we go back to the applicant and to staff, we'll show graphics that speak to this point. So I've noted several times traffic circulation's been a topic of discussion.
Well, these other people were concerned about 32nd Street. I'm talking about 33rd.
And there's some nuances with regard to the site plan. Again, the traffic engineers have looked at it.
All right, yeah, because
we'll take a look at that.
The 33rd, there's only one little lane for them to get onto 33rd going northbound.
So we'll add some clarity to that part of the discussion.
Thank you.
So, okay, the next speaker card I have is, I guess my time's up, I gotta go. All right, the next speaker card I have is Nancy Coffin. If you could, please come forward, state your name and that you have been sworn.
Yes, my name is Nancy Coffin. I have been sworn in. I think I have a map that shows this better, maybe what they were tracking, if I can put it up here.
If you show it, you have to give it to the clerk. Is that fine?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
It should have all been, how do I do it?
On the bullseye up there, if you set it there, it'll display on the overhead.
I live at 5207 32nd Street East, and again, I'm, like everybody else, concerned about the traffic. So what we have been talking about, if I put my finger here, I live right here. Right now, what we're concerned about is how they're going to get in and out of this property. If you come down State Road 70, you cannot make a left onto 32nd to go into this property. You have to go up to the light and get into this property somehow off 33rd. Or you have to turn on 31st Street, Court East. This is the only entrance and exits to our subdivision. You'd have to come down here and around the corner, here's my property, and back this way to get into this property. Right now, it's only our residents that are driving on this. We have children in the neighborhood. Myself and several other women have dogs that we walk all the time, little dogs that are in our yards. All our neighbors know to watch for them. The road was originally, when I moved there in '89, was gravel. They came through and dumped leftover pavement when they did State Road 70 and crushed it down to make a paved road for us. 52nd Avenue East is deteriorated completely. It has lots of ruts. We're always having to have it filled. We have ditches down each side that have standing water. The roads are narrow, so you can't pull off into the ditches. You can go, I do not have a ditch right in front of my property, so people coming around that corner come fast. They come up into my property. They have run over my, I've had semis, there's a big tree right here on this property. And you cannot make this corner with a semi unless you drive all the way up into my lawn. When they do that, they cross my water mains and break the water main on my side of the property that I have to pay for. Also have problems if we have drunks occasionally come through the neighborhood or kids that are driving too fast. They can't make that curve. It's one lane basically. They make it too fast, they swing wide, and they come right up into my yard. I'm concerned about safety factors there. We are on septic. I don't know what Taco Bell is. I'm assuming it'll be some type of sewer, but whether their drainage and everything is going to affect our septic tank systems, I don't know. The mobile station across the street is empty, would have no impact on a residential area. It backs up to commercial. It has good exit on State Road 70 right now, but we need to somehow address that there needs to be entrances and exits on State Road 70. Traffic backs up along State Road 70 at that light in all four directions. It's going to be very hard to make turns into it from either 33rd or 32nd. If they have to have any kind of an entrance on 32nd, I would like to see it be an exit only so they could only turn and go out that little short strip to State Road 70 and not have to come through our property. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Those were all the speaker cards that I had. Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward and speak on this application? Anyone at all? Okay, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing. And we're going to go to discussions with staff and the applicant. So I've just been making notes with regard to citizen comments, and either between staff and the applicant, I'd like to have some dialogue on some of these items. Of course, drainage, which is always a popular topic with regard to any development. The septic systems, traffic circulation, roadway improvements, specifically with regard to the existing roads that serve the neighborhood and would serve this restaurant if it should be approved. And I'm not sure that staff can address this, but maybe the applicant can say something about odor control. So with regard to these items, I'd like to ask staff first. This proposed use would be required to have public water and public sewer, meaning connection to a gravity system that's operated by Manatee County, and of course a water main also from Manatee County Utilities. Is that correct? I believe that's what I read in the staff report.
Mr. Chair, for the record, Thomas Gerstenberger, Public Works Department, I've been sworn. With respect to the utility engineering intent associated with this plan, yes, the project would be tying and connecting into county water and county sewer, which is located adjacent along either 3rd Avenue East, or there is a short leg of sanitary sewer that is already in place along 32nd Street East.
Okay, so this will be on a public utility. There were some comments regarding the existing community having septic systems and how drainage might affect septic systems, or I guess possibly the question might have been also additional sewer systems, how it might affect. Is there a concern on the county's part with regard to the drainage system being having some effect on the operation of the existing septic systems?
Mr. Chair, actually for this particular project, the engineering intent that has been provided with the preliminary site plan identifies the use of a underground stormwater vault to provide for the water quality treatment and attenuation of runoff from this proposed development. Staff has brought up in our rounds of submittals of this project through comments, concerns about underground seepage from the stormwater vault affecting adjacent properties, and also the need for perimeter conveyance swale to intercept runoff from off-site residents to the north of this particular development. The applicant is in agreement to address both of those matters with the final site plan, and the engineering intent has been updated to identify a drainage swale along the northern boundary of this particular project. In addition, and considering here we are again talking about another project in Pierce Drain Watershed, the flow reduction requirement, 50% reduction flow the 50% reduction flow requirement on allowable runoff is also included as a stipulation in the staff report.
With regard to that matter, the 50% reduction, which we've mentioned a couple times today, so in a current condition, the water that runs off, that volume of water has to be cut in half, or the rate of the water has to be cut in half.
Mr. Chair, that is correct. And in addition, this project is draining out towards State Road 70, so they would also be accompanied by DOT drainage permit.
Okay, thank you. And then one additional question, actually two additional questions for staff. Several of the neighbors and folks from the neighborhood have mentioned the roadways, the existing roadways, that they may not be the the standard roadway. Has there been any consideration or contemplation with regard to improvements? I don't know. Usually neighborhood roads don't fall under typical maintenance programs like a thoroughfare or something like that. What's the status of any improvements or proposed repairs with regard to the roadway network that serves the residential community?
Actually, just looking at my email, and unfortunately I can't provide you a answer right at this moment. I have actually inquired back at Public Works office about any possible improvements being made to 31st and 32nd Street East, along with 51st Avenue East, with respect to this general neighborhood, not directly in association with this project. However, I would point out that the commercial that has been constructed along the frontage of 53rd Avenue East, there was the window decor that was discussed, and there was the two auto parts stores further to the west. With those particular projects, and just recalling from memory, those particular projects were required to improve the roadways along their frontage of both of those local roads. They were required to bring those roads up to county standards, whether it be the pavement width, and also to pipe the drainage ditches along the frontages of those particular projects. That, however, did not extend into the neighborhood itself. So I do have the inquiry back to our maintenance and also our project management staff with respect to any future improvements that might be associated with this street network.
Okay, very good. I'm sure that information would be helpful for the Board of County Commissioners. Regardless of the recommendation that comes out of this board, it will be going to the Board of County Commissioners. They may find that very helpful and pertinent. And then I believe those were the main points that I think staff could address. Is there any other questions for
traffic flow? Entrance, exits, etc.
Yes. I was going to ask that question of the applicant, the intent, but Mr. Galliano, with regard to the county's review of that, what is your opinion regarding the circulation, traffic circulation?
Let me explain some issues. Nelson Galliano, Transportation Planning, and I have been served. Let me explain some issues regarding this circulation pattern. First of all, this project will generate only 69 trips during the PM peak hour. From these 69 trips, only half are related to the site. It means the half are pass-by trips. Pass-by trips are trips that you perform, that we perform with the minimal distance. It means we turn right and we turn left. It means that's it. We turn right, we get into the facility to do our business, and then we get out turning again right. That's it, that pass-by trips. In this context, using the 32nd Street, is not an option if you go east, essentially because you need to you turn on 33rd and then turn right. That's not considered into the analysis. That's not the conception and the understanding about pass-by trips. That's the first thing. The second thing is, yes, to get the facility from the east from the State Road 70 eastbound, yes, it is by U-turn on State Road 70. The access on State Road 70, 53rd, is regulated by FDOT because it is State Road 70 is an FDOT facility. Usually, for this type of projects and considering the traffic value on the arterials, FDOT denies the access because it increased the number of conflict points. That is the reason the applicant use 32 and 33 as access points. And confirming the statement from Tom, yes, they need to improve the local roads to the county standards because they are part of the commercial corridor on State Road 70.
That last statement, you're saying there would be a requirement for roadway improvements along the property boundary for both 33rd and 32nd?
From State Road 70 to the access.
On both?
Yes.
Both roadways. Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Roth.
You said 69 trips.
Yes, sir.
How do you determine 69 trips? Is that weighted against the McDonald's that's down the street?
No, sir. There are nationwide. There are a system of collecting information via surveys for different engineering companies, and these surveys are summarized in a traffic generation manual that is released by the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
I understand it. But no one has, for example, said, well, down the street, we have another facility that's going to be just like this. How many trips do they get a day? We haven't done that in this location. We're using a standard system that's been put in a book.
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Is that the ITE?
We follow the regulation, which is the standards, and this is released by the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. Mr. Gerstenberger.
Mr. Chair, I think we also need to have the applicant also address DOT access, because obviously that is a concern that if the DOT is not allowing a direct access off State Road 70, they're basically forcing the traffic to either utilize the local road, which is 32nd, or to use the local county thoroughfare, which is 33rd Street East, for access in lieu of State Road 70 itself.
To that point, these are public rights-of-way, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Is the county have the ability to restrict access of a property owner to their property from a public right-of-way? Not control it, but restrict it.
Right now they have access.
Yeah, they have existing access.
Yes, right now they have an existing access.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably really the question. Does the county even have the ability to restrict access? I don't know if, Ms.
Mr.
Shank,
Chair,
if you have an opinion.
I think they
Mr.
can
DeLeslie.
restrict the type of vehicles that go down the
right
road, so.
If we might sidebar for a second. Mr. Chair, Commissioner DeLeslie, I do agree. The county can place restrictions through stipulations on the type of vehicular traffic that utilizes an access point. It all boils down to circulation. Obviously, if you have a semi-truck come in, then how are they going to turn around and get back out, things of that sort. So, yes, that is certainly something we can look at between now and board meeting. If there is possibility and potential to restrict the type of vehicular use of the two access points, but I would bring up, it is also a matter of circulation. If you do have that delivery truck that comes in off 33rd, would they be able to turn around and go back out 33rd? That's, it all boils down to the design of the project, and it's whether it's the delivery truck, the solid waste truck, emergency management, obviously, as they're going to go wherever they need to go. But if we're talking solely about on-site use, whether it be for a solid waste truck or a delivery truck, then that would have to be looked at as part of the design of the project as far as circulation.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
do have provisions for no truck signs, which have to go through a county code amendment to an ordinance to prohibit trucks on a road. We can't just say this establishment can't have trucks and everyone else can.
Right. Ms. Schenk, do you have an opinion with regard to limiting access from a public right-of-way? Like, for instance, if the idea was proffered that there were no access allowed for this restaurant that's being proposed off at 32nd, if that would be a defendable position?
I think they have to be continued to go back through the DRC review process. I mean, there's fire safety issues, fire truck access, traffic circulation. We can't just prohibit it here.
Right.
It's a technical analysis.
No, I realize that. It's just a question. It's just something that I think is, as I said previously, this is going to end up in front of the Board of County Commissioners, and I think these things would be helpful to know that we've at least discussed them and debated them.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one option to solve the circulation problem is to ensure that the 33rd access is only in and the 32 access is only out. And at the same time, the 32 should be only one-way street. In that way, you avoid to get into 32 and avoiding the circulation through the neighborhood. But this type of things should be reviewed by the DRC.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And also, we need to have some discussion with the applicant with regard to circulation and also with the issues on State Road 70. So I think that information may be pertinent to the suggestion. So is there any other questions for staff?
It's perimeter fencing is only 6 inch or 6 foot PVC as opposed to concrete block or anything?
Robert Knable, environmental, and I have been sworn. Right now, there's a 6 foot opaque fence that matches what I believe is an existing opaque fence out there. There's a 15-foot landscape buffer, and then that fence is within that 15-foot landscape buffer.
And the fence is on the inside or the outside of the landscape buffer?
The landscaping is going to be on the project side, the inside.
So the neighbor's going to see the fence, but it'll have landscaping plantings in front of it.
We generally try to do that when it's up against another property owner so they can manage the landscaping.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, all right. Would like to, yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Jamie Schindewolf, Planner 1, been sworn. I do just want to point out we have recently, after getting public comment, we have spoken with the applicant about the fence, and they are open to maybe some other solutions, other materials for that, some creative landscaping, that kind of thing. I think they can maybe speak more to it now, but I do want to say that we have considered something different, but that's only really come up recently with the public comments.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to allow the applicant for rebuttals. And one of the things I would ask of you is if you would put your site plan on the overhead and discuss traffic circulation, the intended traffic circulation. I did notice that a right in, right out was proposed on 33rd, and I think that maybe is a nuance that wasn't understood by some of the neighbors. But if you could just explain how the intended access points would be utilized from State Road 70 east and westbound, and then 33rd Street and 32nd, how they all are involved in the circulation plan.
Okay, certainly. Just to go on the question regarding access on State Road 70, it doesn't meet their dimensional criteria, and DOT is not going to allow that.
So you've already had discussions with DOT?
We've already pre-upped it with DOT. We've actually submitted, and that's not.
And they denied an access point? Okay, understood.
So right now, this right here, this access off of, this one right here would be a right in, right out. So traffic coming this way, come in, you come out of it this way.
Mm-hmm. Is there an opportunity for a left turn on the northbound? So folks going northbound on 33rd can't make a left turn?
There's a turn lane right there. They cannot make that turn across the turn.
Okay, all right.
So if you were coming down, and like was told, Taco Bells tend to be more of it's a passerby type. It's not No one gets up in the morning and thinks, what am I going to do today? Go to Taco Bell. So you're on the road.
Oh, I don't know.
Sorry. We'll admit that.
It is Valentine's Day.
And gift cards are available. No, but sorry. No, it's so I mean it's a passerby thing. I mean, you're going to go to lunch, you're going to go to McDonald's, you're out for lunch, and you're going to go there. So we understand that's what we do. But traffic coming in, I mean, heading east, be westbound, would come in here, take the right in, come back out. They could loop back in around the signal and head back westbound. So if you're heading eastbound, you would make the U-turn, head to here, come back through here. Obviously, then you can go back out.
Or you go 33rd.
So our analysis really didn't show there was going to be a lot of traffic going through the subdivision. It just...
I think probably the concern is the presumption that cars are going to select a U-turn over a directional turn on 31st. I think that's probably where the concern is. I think the circulation is probably one of the largest concerns because the ability for eastbound traffic to actually get to the facility is somewhat limited. It requires a U-turn. So
maybe this will maybe better explain that. Can you zoom that out just a bit? You keep going. In order to get from 31st, I mean, that's a long way around. We don't see our customers tend to drive that far to get back to us. So it's got to be, we're a quick serve restaurant. If it's going to take a long time to get in and out, they're going to go somewhere else, whether it be McDonald's across the street or somewhere.
And then Mr. Galliano suggested maybe some restricted additional restrictions where you have an entry and an exit. Has that been contemplated?
Not really. That's just brought up today, and I'm not sure which direction you would be looking at.
Right.
Coming in and out of.
Right. That would be a conversation that I think the staff would have to have because this application doesn't consider that, and we can't make those determinations here. So our decision has to be based on the information that's presented here. So, okay.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Roth.
33rd Street, is that a two-way street?
Two-way street?
Yes.
It is.
It is, but there's a divider there.
And, okay, does the divider not allow anyone to make a left turn?
Yes. You're not.
You could only make a right turn to go to McDonald's.
Correct. Or to the shopping center. I think there's an Ollie's, or you can keep on going down that road.
So you want me to go up 33rd and can I make a left turn to get into this, or you can't?
No.
No.
You got to go the other way.
And that's what I'm getting the
at.
point I was trying to make on the overhead. There's a directional, there's curbs that prohibit that.
Do we have a traffic count for 33rd at the corner of Route 70?
The applicant may be able to address what was done for a transportation analysis or traffic analysis.
We do have a traffic study.
How many left turn people are lined up at 12 o'clock?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's northbound off at 33rd? I mean, sorry, southbound?
Yes.
Correct.
Well, eastbound on 70, northbound on 33rd, even though there's no entrance. I'm looking for the traffic for the turnaround.
Yeah.
You may not have it.
I'm not sure if he broke it down that at this point.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I would. I have the desire to get my chalupa on. Yeah, but my personal opinion is if I had the desire for Taco Bell that badly, I would make a U-turn in that parking lot where the McDonald's is.
That's even better.
And come back around. I mean,
That's
I wouldn't drive all the way through the neighborhood.
The problem with
For Taco
traffic,
Bell.
for traffic design and analysis, you can't contemplate what everybody's going to do.
No, I know, I understand.
People are going to
Completely.
drive across curbs.
Personal preference.
So
I'll present my point if you let.
Did you have the transportation?
I don't have it
information?
right here with
okay,
me, no.
all right. Any additional questions regarding circulation?
Can you plot out the intended delivery route?
They would come in right here, come back in, and just circle back out to the light.
So they have to be going
Correct.
westbound in order to
Correct.
make a delivery.
That's it.
Okay. Any additional questions regarding traffic circulation? Mr. DeLesline.
On the west our exit, is there any thought of just left only as opposed to left or right?
I don't see that would, I mean, we don't really have a lot going right anyway, so it would just restrict the access from the neighborhood, so they'd have to go back out onto 70 to come back around if they go there.
Okay.
But I don't know if they would have any objection to that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a couple of issues that were raised that I would like the applicant's representative to address, either the Taco Bell deliveries, and what, oh, I'm not on the mic. Sorry.
You're on.
It is on. Hello?
Yeah.
Deliveries, I would like to know what time, when are their hours of delivery, and then also the hours of operation, just so they can give you a feel, because I know that there was a number of people who addressed those answers. So I think the franchisee's representative can discuss those issues.
And then also, along the same vein, what is typically done for odor control?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Ben DeVries. I'm the program manager for Taco Bell. I live at 161 Oakwood Lane, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, and I have been this morning.
Thank you.
The first off, I guess I would say I like to put a plug in for Taco Bell. We believe we're a world-class operation program. We do world-class facilities, world-class products, and world-class services. We are very concerned about servicing the residents that you're concerned with. Food security and food affordability is a growing issue in the country. We address that for many people. We have a very large vegan menu. We're one of the few national chains that actually offers a complete vegan selection for people. In terms of odor, that relates to a key issue because we do not grill any foods as opposed to the burger factories. We only use pretty much it's a microwave process for most of our services. So and in terms of delivery, we do 1 or 2 deliveries a week, and typically it's 2 to 4 a.m. So it's very little experience impacting the local residents. And in terms of our hours of operation, it would be typically 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. I talked to the operating CEO of this property, and that's his planned schedule. It may be a little bit different depending on your community's requirements, but that's our plan.
Okay, very good. Any additional questions for the applicant? All right, and again, to protect the process, this is your opportunity for a rebuttal. So if there are any issues that have been brought up that you wish to address that we haven't asked questions about, this would be your opportunity.
I think we've covered drainage. I mean, just to add in, we will do 50% less than pre. We kind of got ahead of ourselves. There was a little miscommunication in some of our pre-app, and we've done a little bit more design on this one. So we actually have a design on the drainage, and we will be doing 50% less than pre. Additionally, we also have to do the FDOT storms, which are some 48-odd storms we've got to run and do that are even more stringent. So we did have a bypass swale to intercept the water from anything that might seep out of the underground, and it'll also be collecting any runoff from the north flowing to the south, and we'll convey that around. Wait one second. Cover that. Piping food, we don't do that. So whatever, if they pipe food in the air, just to let that one know. That's not something that's done. I think someone brought up compatibility. There's McDonald's across the street, more than enough. I mean, there's commercials of the whole thing. I think we're compatible. I think that was pretty much it.
Okay.
One other thing.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the fencing, we have had conversations with your staff. We're very sensitive to the aesthetics of our site and the appeal to our community as well as to your residents. We don't favor a concrete wall just because of the sound attenuation. It's not necessarily the best way for us. Our experience is we like to have landscaping. We would agree to a 6-foot fence. We would agree to add landscaping, and happy to open that conversation and come up with a solution that attenuates the sound and lights and noise for your neighbors.
Okay, very good. All right.
We do have a picture. I mean, what we are doing, we are proposing Simpson Stopper, which is a kind of a robust hedge. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is a Simpson Stopper hedge that we'll be planting along the back. So I think that's fairly impenetrable and would deaden sound.
And for the record, that's proffered, not being required by the county?
Correct, that's what we're doing, yes. It's already on our plans.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. So we've had the applicant's rebuttal, and the next part of the discussion is going to be deliberation. So I'm going to go ahead and, if there's no additional testimony for the public hearing, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. So before I do that, I'm going to ask the question of staff: Is all the information necessary been presented on the record? Okay, seeing nobody jump up and running for a mic, I'm going to close the public hearing. So the next part of this discussion is the deliberation, and this is where it becomes, this is where the quasi-judicial, which I forgot to ask, just for the record, has there been any any ex parte communications, because this is a quasi-judicial hearing?
No.
Okay, none has been disclosed. So the fact that this is quasi-judicial, we're to act as judges in this hearing, and our metric is, does this meet the comprehensive plan, and does it meet the land development code requirements? So it becomes difficult. We have a proposed use, restaurant use on State Road 70, which is a state road. The problem becomes more evident when you just look a little bit past the restaurant and you see the residential communities and how it's going to affect the folks in that area. So what are the thoughts of the commission? Is there any discussion? What are your concerns? What are the things that we might suggest need to be vetted between now and the Board of County Commissioners? Any thoughts?
Well, my concern is the in and out and the residents behind there.
Right.
That's been said numerous times.
Yeah, I agree. Circulation is probably the largest one. We hear many times about drainage and different things, utilities. A lot of those can be engineered away. The traffic is something that's a little more difficult to deal with. There is some component of restriction, but like I said previously, you can't guess what everybody's going to do. People are going to drive across medians if they want to get someplace. So Mr. Roth.
The traffic that I'd like to address is the traffic that runs east. I go through it weekly because I spend a lot of time at Sam's on the Family Shopper. And I have to tell you that the backup at that light is incredible. This is only going to create more havoc at that corner. Unless, like someone said, well, I'll go further down the street. You just create more havoc further down the street. Or you could turn at the post office light. However, we're going to have a Wendy's at that corner. So I'm guessing this is going to be a traffic problem, even though it may land okay on the land use code.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this matter? Anything else? Okay. So we've discussed it. I think there's a consensus. Traffic is probably going to be the biggest consideration with regard to this. But that being said, if there's no additional deliberation, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion.
Mr. Ron.
Based on the staff report, I move to recommend adoption of PDMU 1818P as recommended by staff.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Mr. Smock, thank you very much. We have a second. So is there any additional discussion or deliberation? Good. All right, the chair will call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Mr. DeLeslin? Okay, very good. Chair votes aye, and the motion passes 4-2. And again, this is one of those things where we have a dissenting vote, and for the record, again, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. The reason for your nay vote is?
Traffic.
And Mr. Roth, what is? Same thing, traffic. Okay, very good. And like I said, this is a difficult one, and I understand the impact of the community, but we have a limited scope here, and that's to determine if it's consistent with the county documents. So, that the motion passed 4-2, and it's going to be sent to the board, and you'll have an opportunity again to speak to the board on this matter. So, all right, it's a little bit after 12 right now. We've got two more items on the agenda.
One is Meals on Wheels, so.
Say again?
One is Meals on Wheels.
Yeah. So, what is the pleasure of the board?
Keep going.
You want to power through?
Yeah.
Power through.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a issue, medical issue, anything? All right.
Deliver Jimmy John's?
Let's not go there.
No, not go better.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and power through and go to the next item.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bernard had a question.
Oh, Mr.
Want to check with the clerk, make sure she's.
I mean, I don't have a choice.
No.
You do.
No, I don't. If they want to continue on, I have to continue. If I need a restroom break, I'll say so.
You want to? Do you need a break?
No, I'm good right now.
Good. All right.
But when it comes to like taking lunch, I can't tell you guys you can't take lunch.
Yeah, you're here regardless. That's so. All right, we'll let's not dally then. Item number 6, Meals on Wheels. Ms. Tusing, can you please read that into the record?
Yes, excuse me. Item number 6 is Plan Amendment 1814, Ordinance 1907, which is Meals on Wheels Plus of Manatee County. It is a small-scale map amendment. This is a legislative item, and Jamie Schindelwolf is the planner. This is an amendment to the future land use map of the future land use element to designate specific real property from the residential 9 future land use category, which is approximately 0.367 acres, to the IL industrial light future land use classification. It is commonly known as 825 23rd Avenue East in Bradenton. And the applicant's representatives, as well as Jamie Schindelwolf, are here for presentation. And there was a public comment letter submitted this last evening, so I will hand that out.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's John Foley. I'm a civil engineer with Foley and Cleric, and I'm here representing the Meals on Wheels. We have reviewed the staff report and really have nothing technical to add to what they presented, but I am happy to have Haskell Gates with me here to give you just a little bit of history of their involvement with the property adjacent to the piece that we're looking to get the land use change on. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Haskell Gates. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Meals on Wheels Plus of Manatee. And thank you for hearing us this afternoon. We have been in business serving Manatee County since 1972, which is 47 years. 40 of those years on this piece of property, joining the one that we're talking about. And I just wanted to show you where we are with this property. We've got two buildings on our existing parcel at 811 23rd Avenue East that are at a minimum 40 years old each, and they will need to be replaced at some point in time in the near future. We are in the process of planning the replacements for those two buildings and found that we need, in order to come up to the parking requirements that are necessary and the access, we have acquired, I think it was under contract when we submitted when we first submitted the application, but we have since closed the contract to purchase 825 23rd Avenue East, which is the first adjoining parcel. And what we're suggesting, or what we're asking for, is the first step in a process to rezone that parcel to conform it to the existing irregular parcel that we already have, in order to allow us to go forward and either rebuild or replace the buildings on the current property that we own. That's it, unless you have questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Your description of irregular, that's referring to the shape, not the zoning or the use?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? It's pretty clear. Thank you. All right, staff?
Good afternoon. Jamie Schindewolf again, Manatee County Planning. Just to give some general context on this issue, this is a map amendment for 0.3627 acres. Site currently is classified as residential, 9 dwelling units per acre, and the applicant is requesting an amendment to the comprehensive plan to put them in industrial light designation. The surrounding area is a combination of residential and industrial future land uses, and this will allow the continuation of this existing use for Meals on Wheels, which is in this vicinity here. This is the Meals on Wheels property, to expand their operation. They are currently located adjacent to US 301, which is ideally located for their meal distribution. Any vehicles entering and exiting the site hopefully will be able to avoid cutting through the residential area by using 301. There's currently a single-family residence located on the subject site. The site's in the urban service area, the Southwest Tax Increment Financing District, and across US 31 from the Manufacturing Development Overlay District. Tropicana is located in that vicinity. Here you can see the zoning, the NCS, and the light manufacturing. This is the Meals on Wheels site, and this is the site in question here highlighted in red. Again, just to show the future land use map here, this will be an extension of the existing industrial light category. Staff finds primarily positive aspects to this change in land use designation. It's adjacent to existing industrial light, has access to a major roadway, US 301. The roadway networks, utilities, et cetera, currently already exist to support development on the site, and it will allow the expansion of Meals on Wheels Plus that serves meals to residents who are in need throughout the county. As far as negative aspects go, there may be potential negative aspects related to light, glare, et cetera, but there are a number of mitigating measures that can be used to help reduce those impacts. After reviewing the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan, staff recommends approval of this Comprehensive Plan map amendment.
Is that it? Very good. And again, to Ms. Schindewolf's point, this is a comprehensive plan amendment, so ex parte doesn't necessarily apply. Also, you don't have to be sworn to provide testimony. So very good. We're gonna. Are there any questions for the
for staff. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to move down to the public comment portion of the hearing. I don't have any speaker cards for this particular item, but is there anybody in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak on this? Anyone at all? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing. And is there any discussions, deliberations, thoughts on this application? Mr. Roth.
So could we ask the applicant whether the adjacent property to the one to that's currently residential that abuts this property, is there an intention to buy the others to add to their?
You could ask, but it's really not relevant to this. This particular application is a comprehensive plan. But if the applicant wishes to volunteer that information, I'm sure. Not being familiar with this, but I could guess that Meals on Wheels would like to be able to close down their facility if everybody's got their own food. So.
Oh, okay.
But the counter is true. If they need to serve people, I'm sure they'd like to take the whole block.
By the public letter, they're requesting a privacy fence.
Again, this is a comprehensive plan amendment, so it's not pertinent. So when they eventually, I'm sure they'll come before us with a zoning issue. Maybe that's when it would be appropriate.
Maybe I should ask my question of staff.
Yeah.
So if you change the comprehensive plan to allow this particular parcel, you think we'll be changing the comprehensive plan to the next parcel? If there's no one on it, I mean, I don't think there's anybody on it right now.
You mean with this application?
No, with any application.
In the future.
Future.
They buy the adjacent properties.
Any future applications be based on their merit?
Okay.
So
we don't know.
Yeah, it would have to be considered at that time. With regard to the comment, the public comment that was received, did staff communicate that that wasn't something that was pertinent at this time? Okay.
Jamie Schindewolf, the same resident who sent that email, I also spoke with her on the phone.
Okay.
So I didn't reply, I just got that at 7 p.m. last night. I did not reply to that email, but I did do my best to explain our process and that a site plan would come in down the line, and that would be when we would work out those sorts of details.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah, not everybody has lives and breathes this stuff, so it's a new experience for many people. So, all right, any additional questions or comments for staff? Okay, very good. Any follow-up staff closing comments? Applicant rebuttal? Okay, any deliberation? All right, very good. Then the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeLesline.
I move to recommend approval of Plan Amendment PA 1814 Ordinance 1907 as recommended by staff.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Roth, second. Chair will call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, we have the last item on the agenda, item number 7. Ms. Tusing, can you please read item number 7 into the record?
Yes, item number 7 is PDC 9107GR. It's Lakeside Plaza Shopping Center, which is where the Home Depot is located, and Home Depot USA, Inc. is the owner. It is a quasi-judicial matter, and Rosina Leiter is the planner on it. This is a zoning ordinance amending PDC 9107ZG to add mini warehouse self-storage to the previously approved uses and to approve an amendment to the general development plan on approximately 2.6 acres of the overall 13.44 acre site. It is located on the north side of Cortez Road, west and east of 24th Street. Cortez Road West, and east of 24th Street West, located in Bradenton. The applicant's representative is here, as well as Rosina Leiter from staff for presentation.
Very good. Thank you very much. This is quasi-judicial, so we'll ask, have there been any ex parte communications?
No.
Okay. Seeing none disclosed, we'll move on to the applicant's presentation. Good Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Danielle Ellis, and I have been sworn. I am with the law firm of Grimes Goebel, Grimes Hawkins, Gladfelter, and Galvano, and today I have with me Mr. Caleb Grimes, the attorney for the applicant, and two representatives for our applicant, Tom and Eric Johnson. I'll make this quick. I won't repeat the site information that Ms. Tusing provided, so I will jump into the details. This is a redevelopment project. You may be familiar with this. It is located in the same shopping plaza as the Home Depot on Cortez Road. The 2.6 acre site that we will be talking about is directly adjacent to the garden center on the northeast corner of that Home Depot. Like I said, this is redevelopment. It's an infill in the existing building. There will be no structural changes to this building. On the exterior, it will be all modification on the inside. A little history on the site. This building was constructed in the 1960s and was operated as a retail furniture store, I believe, until maybe 10 or so years ago. They closed shop at this facility and it has remained vacant. The building was included in 1992 with a overall rezone of a 19.4 acre parcel to accommodate the Home Depot. At the time, the retail furniture user was still in the building, so Home Depot put retail over the top of the site plan and left it at that. They did not provide language within their ordinance or on the site plan for any future change of use. So that is why we're before you today. There is provision in Section 324.2 of the Land Development Code that requires any change in use that's not identified on the zoning ordinance or the site plan to come before you. So the request that we have today for your recommendation of approval will be to add the mini warehouse self-storage use to the general development plan for the overall site, but it is specific to this 2.6 acre site in this vacant retail building.
So that point being the entire PD will have the right to use the...
Only on this site. There is a site plan associated with the, because it's an old general development plan, we do not have the exact same one. The use will only be allowed in this vacant retail building.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, the use will change. It can be a retail in the future or remain as mini warehouse self-storage. In addition to the request for this use, we are also asking for a specific approval for an alternative to the Land Development Code under 53131 for mini warehouse self-storage. It does require foundation landscaping to be placed around the foundation of the building. This is an existing building. On the south side, there is an existing sidewalk and overhang, so it would not be feasible to put landscaping along that foundation. The alternative will be to provide 142 shrubs, which is the equivalent to the measures in the Land Development Code. Those shrubs will go into the existing islands in the parking lot and the landscape buffers surrounding the building. As you can see, this is a minor modification. It's something that you see with older plans and older zoning ordinances. Moving forward, the staff has recognized that this is an issue, and they now provide an ordinance as a schedule of uses to accommodate anything and everything that is under the zoning. And this site is zoned Plan Development Commercial, which allows mini warehouse self-storage, and the future land use is retail office residential, which also allows for the mini warehouse self-storage use. I would be happy to answer any questions that you guys have and would appreciate your recommendation of approval of our requested uses. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. All right. We're going to move on to the public. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll move on to staff presentation.
Good afternoon, Rosina Lader by the staff. I confirm that all information that is provided by the applicant is correct, and we agree with the findings, and we are supporting the application. We don't receive any public comment, only questions related to if there's going to be a new building and this kind of stuff, but any negative comments related to the application. If you have any particular questions, I can answer.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, now we'll move on to the public comment portion of the hearing. And I have one speaker card, Ms. Beverly Comstock. If you could, please come forward, state your name and that you have been sworn.
Yes, Beverly Comstock, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
I have some photos also. I want to contest the amending zoning use of the Lakeside Plaza by any business until dangerous conditions and health hazards are resolved. Home Depot must make permanent changes before any buildings are sold or rented. Home Depot is not a good neighbor. Home Depot promised to clean up the property, install no parking signs, fix street lights, all broken, but nothing is done. Bayshore, adjoining condo, building B, cannot sleep at night because of drug trafficking, deals all hours of the day and night. Trucks, loud noise, headlights hit our condo, loud noises from firecrackers. Sheriff's Department has been called many times because Home Depot will not hire security or post no parking signs because this roadway is a one-way traffic. Trucks turn around, doubling the amount of noise and traffic. Home Depot does not police their property, has no security on the property. Home Depot for years has allowed the property to run down. Roadway is full of large potholes. Garbage is littered all around. Code enforcement has been called many times. Zach Stigig, homeless people living in cardboard boxes. Many times we've had to have them removed. Aaron's does not close their dumpsters. They're right next door to this property we're talking about. Garbage is piled high from dumpster to back door building. Furniture such as beds is placed there and homeless people use these items to live there. This is a health hazard. I have contacted Home Depot's office in Atlanta many times, and they informed me that they were going to post no parking and no dumping signs on the property since December. Home Depot promised they were having a company who would tow away any trespassers. Numerous calls to Ken at Home Depot in Bradenton, who promised to place no parking signs from Sheriff's Department, but none have been posted. Trucks, cars, semi-trailers with and without trailers is parked there for months. DOT has 2 trucks without trailers on them, have been parked there near the fence for years. Because of the neglect of this property by Home Depot, our real estate values remain at an all-time low. Now I have some photos.
When you show those photos, you'll have to give them to the clerk.
That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you.
We're in the District 34205, which is one of the highest crime districts, too. Right. We've had these problems for years. Home Depot will not help us. All the lights are out, drug deals going on. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is I guess I can zoom in here. Of all of the trucks, semis, this was taken on Sunday. You can see them all parked there, and then I'll show you also pictures of the property on the left that we're talking about is where they want to put in these, it's a mini storage thing, which means that there's going to be people coming and going, and I don't know how they're going to police it because there's, from the storage department, there's all kinds of cockroaches and rodents and everything enter these buildings unless it's really policed and pest control is coming in there to check that out. So that's one of the things. And if they allow cardboard boxes in there, that also people bring in those cardboard boxes and then they take them out and they bring them over to the condo or where they're moving in and they contaminate the whole place. All right, this one here, DOT has 2 trucks parked there that have been there for about a year. They don't move them. They won't move them. Here's another one. As you can see, just trailers, nothing attached to them. And here's a no parking sign, which on the east end of this plaza, they have said no parking, no trash throwing, and they have a telephone number. Nobody parks there. Then here's another one, the same thing. The road is deplorable. The building hasn't been painted. It's an eyesore. Here's a picture showing how close our condos are. Right there. That's why we get all of the headlights and all the noise. They run their compressors all night. Excuse me. This is another picture just showing you that there's no trailer on this DOT truck. 2 of them parked there. Here's the sign, which here's potholes. The place is all full of potholes. This also shows Aaron's, which, if you can pull that in there, they have their dumpsters open, which is next door, and all of their trash is piled all the way to their back door. And they also, I've told them about that also, and they haven't done anything about it. It's a health hazard. They have, it brings in roaches and everything else. And where there is a no parking sign, no trucks are parked there. And there's another picture just showing all of the traffic in Home Depot's parking lot that they use for their main store is on the left. They have trucks parked there too. And this is the east section where signs do work, and if they put those signs up, they wouldn't have half of the problems.
Very good.
I object to any more businesses going in there because the people that want to put that business in there of the mini storage, they don't really take care of the other condos that they own there on the property. So I don't know how they're going to be taking care of this property, which I said, if you approve it, they have to have pest control come in every 3 months and check it. We don't need any more problems with adding any more businesses there when there's so many problems. There's no lights there.
Right.
And everything else.
Very, very good. And if you could, please provide the...
I do.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to come forward and make a comment?
I just want to say one more thing. There was 2 murders there committed right there, too, about 4 months ago.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else wishes to come forward and make a comment? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we're going to go to any discussion, deliberation.
I guess hours of operation into the facility.
When we have the applicant come back up, we'll ask the hours of operation and ask them to address some of the issues that maybe were brought up.
Security.
Yep. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, all right. We're going to go to the staff closing comments.
I don't have any in particular. I drove through the property a few times, and I see the trucks. I don't know what is the situation. I didn't see any particular situation related to garbage that called my attention. And it's important to point that one of the pictures that was shown are for the adjacent parcel. This initially was only one parcel. To the document camera, the site initially was, I don't know if it could be, these were 2 parcels, only one parcel when initially was approved. Right now, only this parcel is the Home Depot, and this is part of the, I think it's vendors on development. And I think that part of the problem is that this building has been empty for a long time, and there is not anybody to control any of the security, traffic, or any safety regulations in this particular back of the building. I think so that with the redevelopment, with the reoccupy the building, part of this problem is going to be gone, or at least somebody going to take care of the situation.
Very good, thank you. The next, any questions for staff? Okay, we're going to move on to the applicant rebuttal. If you could you to answer Mr. DeLesline's question regarding the hours of operation, and then also speak with regard to the proposed use. I would suspect if it's storage, there's probably going to be additional folks where there's going to be some opportunity for monitoring activities around the site. I think that might be helpful for for the neighbor.
To answer the question about hours of operation, the office inside the building will be open from about 9:30 to 6:30. It will be all indoor, air conditioned, secured. It's a modernized storage unit. It's not like the older versions you see where you just plug in your gate code, do whatever. You have to have a key to get in during the closed hours, so that will be monitored and secured in that fashion. To address the concerns about the trailers parked in the area, garbage, things like that, the east end of the shopping plaza is owned by Benderson. Our client will be purchasing this 2.6 acre site from Home Depot. Home Depot is not the applicant here today asking for this change in use. The trailers, things like that, there's going to be restriping done, the revitalization of the landscaping and the building itself. Bringing new users in will cut down on the unfortunate issues that the citizen described.
Very good. And the accesses to the rear, I know they connect to public roadways, but the property is a private property, correct? And it's controlled by the owners, and they can limit access or grant access to whoever they wish?
Correct.
Okay, so they have the ability, if they want to restrict access or storage of empty trailers, they can do that if
Correct.
they
I believe there's 2 access points at the north end of the shopping plaza.
Okay, and as you indicated, the applicant's actually purchasing it, so
Correct.
I presume they'll take control over it, and they'll operate their business as they
Correct. And in their area of what they're purchasing, that back half, the pictures that were shown where trailers were parked, that will not be under the ownership of Home Depot once the applicant closes on the property.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Sorry, the public comment portion's closed. We can't have any additional testimony. All right, Chair will, is there any discussion or deliberation? Anything relevant to the decision? Okay, the Chair will consider a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeLesline.
I move to recommend approval of Manatee County zoning ordinance number PDC 91-07, GR retaining stipulations 1 through 12, approval of the amendment to the general development plan, granting specific approval of alternative to land development code, section 531.31.f, relocating the required foundation planning for new warehouse self-storage to other landscape areas as recommended by staff.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Roth, second. Any additional discussion or deliberation? Okay, seeing none, the chair is going to call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. That's the agenda for the day. The only other thing I would like to remind you is Bobby circulated the information regarding ex parte communication. So when you have an opportunity, review that. It's been some time since I reviewed it, and it reminded me that site visits also count toward ex parte. If you're doing anything with regard to collecting information on a site, that counts to it. So with that being said, we're going to close the meeting and thank everybody for their participation.